last night I did a stream of a little Lily Princess, and I thought today I'd do more streaming since I have today off. So I'm gonna go ahead and start streaming that, and if anyone wants to join, I'd be very happy to have you. Please let me know if I sound okay, and if not, tell me if I need to be louder or if the music needs to be quieter. But I'm gonna continue from where I was last time. So it'll be very exciting to have all of you here with me. And yeah. Once again, Miss Minchin prepared to lead her students back from church to the safe confines of the seminary. However, it so happened that on this Sunday she caught sight of someone with whom she had business to conduct. "Keep together now, girls. Form a line and wait here. Lavinia, dear, I am counting on you to maintain order. I will be only a few minutes." "Yes, Miss Minchin." As Miss Minchin walked away, Lavinia raised her chin with pride. She did not notice the conversation going on around her. "Look, Sarah Mamma, why is that tower so high?" "That is where they keep the church bells. They lift them up high so that they can be heard from far away. There is a man who lives up there, the tower keeper. It is his job to watch over the bells and keep them clean and ready to ring." "He lives there? He never comes down?" Sarah did not know how the tower keeper spent his days, but she had heard of wise men in India who kept vigils, and of Christian stylites who lived atop pillars. No, never. The priests bring him food and water, so that he never has to look down. He tends the bells, and he thinks about God. Because he's so high up in the sky, sometimes, if he is very lucky, the clouds part, and he can almost catch a glimpse of the land beyond. "The shining city and the fields of lilies?" At this point, Lavinia noticed the two of them standing with their necks craned back. "Sarah Crewe, whatever are you doing? You are gawking like foreigners." Sarah and Lottie lowered their heads, though not, in Lottie's case, without protest. "We are looking up at a heaven where our mammas are. They live in a city with golden streets and fields of lilies that everyone gathers. And they watch over us and whisper to us, and they visit the man in the bell tower. Sarah told me." "You wicked thing, making up fairy stories about heaven." "There are much more splendid stories in Revelation. How do you know mine are fairy stories?" You're lying. You didn't get this story from the Bible." "Read it for yourself. Streets of gold and gates of pearl and many more things besides. Perhaps the lilies are my own invention, and perhaps they aren't. But I can tell you, you will never find out whether they are or not if you're not kinder to people than you are now." "What?" But Sarah, perhaps feeling a bit ashamed of her burst of unheavenly temper, turned her head and refused to respond. Damn, Sarah, you tell her. You tell her. So, let's see. Yay, hello viewer. I hope you're having a good time. I just started. I am gonna just quickly send a thing to let somebody know that I'm streaming. And then I'm gonna continue. I should see what I need first. I need knowledge. I need patience. Oh, I am so much out of vigor. Okay, let's see what's gonna give me the most vigor. Ooh. That might give me... Okay, we'll play with toys. Play with toys. Do knowledge. We'll practice dance. And then I need grace. Which one is grace? I think this is actually grace. And we'll practice dance. So, hey! Glad to see you, Trinity. Welcome. I hope you have a good time. Good to have you. I'm just doing something real quick. Let me see. Okay, and here we go. This looks like a good sketch. Playing. Okay. Tutoring. Okay, good. I needed that. Dancing. I'll take that. Got a lot of patience, got a lot of knowledge. Vigor's still pretty bad, but we can get up there soon. Sarah had been out in town buying a new book, and as she rode in the comfortable carriage back to Miss Minchin's school, her mind was filling up with stories and histories. Quite unconsciously, she descended the carriage steps with the grace of a queen, looking much grander than she might have imagined, if she were the sort of girl to think in great detail about how she looked. As Sarah crossed the pavement, she caught sight of a dingy little figure down on the servants' area steps. A girl with a soot-smudged face, peering up at her with wide eyes. Something in the eagerness and timidity of that smudgy face made Sarah look back, and when she looked, she smiled, because it was her way to smile at people. The eyes went wider, as if afraid that she ought not to have been caught looking at a pupil of importance. The maid, if that was what she was, turned and scurried back into the kitchen, vanishing as quickly as a reversed jack-in-the-box. Poor little forlorn thing. I wonder who she is. Ooh, okay. So, we have some stuff currently. We can basically hang out with everyone except Ermengarde, who last stream we were sort of gunning for. And that's because her next thing, well, we don't have enough knowledge, but even still, she's only available on week 14. So for the meantime, we could kind of pick whoever we want. If anyone has any suggestions, I'm down to hear. I said in my last stream that it's good to focus on at least 2 people if you want to get them in the second part. But we've kind of looked at everyone, I think, except Lottie. Lottie's kind of the only one we haven't really focused on. And then we mainly stuck to Ermengarde, but we have some time. I do know that at a certain point, some characters will get locked out if we haven't unlocked all their scenes yet. So if we want to see all their scenes by the second part of the game, we want to start to work on them now. I will say Lavinia has a point where we can no longer talk to her after a certain point. So that's an option if we want. I know we went with Lavinia last time. I know we did Jessie a little. I know we did Mariette. We still have not unlocked the last girl. She is coming soon. So if anything, we could always just wait on her, and she could be sort of the other person. But yeah, we can't do Ermengarde, so just put in the chat. I'd love to hear who you think we should go for. I'm down for any, and I'll be right back. Just give me 1 second, and I'll let people deliberate, and hopefully I'll hear what the comments are, and if there's nothing, maybe Lottie. Okay, that's a good option. Alright, give me 1 second, and I'll be right back. Thank you so much for your patience. I am back. Since it just seems like Lottie, so I guess we'll just go with Lottie for now. Let's do Lottie. Sarah was seated comfortably in the classroom, gazing at the window and thinking. It was not that the seat itself was so comfortable. The long form benches of the schoolroom were chosen for function and ease of use, not for gently cushioning the tender bottoms of schoolgirls. Sarah's own cozy little parlor contained far more comfortable places to sit than the classroom or even the dining room at Miss Minchin's. However, sometimes the change of scenery was more conducive to clear thinking. There was something interesting about being in a classroom when all the other students had gone. Is this still a classroom if there is no class inside it? And yet, it was not long before someone else did enter that room. Someone who stood at the corner of Sarah's vision, unwilling to speak and interrupt, but nearly bouncing on her toes from excitement. Lottie? A After looking outside and letting her mind wander for so long, Sarah's eyes seemed to view everything in the wrong colors, and Lottie's round face was overlaid with pinks and greens. She blinked a few times to clear her vision. Lottie clapped her hands together, taking this as permission to speak.
May we go and see the doll, Emily, now, and have tea?
All right. Sarah led the way up the stairs, motioning Lottie behind her to stay quiet. But you must be careful not to disturb her.
Disturb who?
If we're very lucky, you might see. The door to Sarah's room stood in front of them. Sarah placed a finger over her own lips and then to Lottie's. Only after Lottie nodded did she reach for the door. Then, Sarah suddenly turned the handle and threw it wide open. Its opening revealed the room quite neat and quiet, a fire gently burning in the grate, and a wonderful doll sitting in a chair by it, apparently reading a book. Oh, she got back to her seat before we could see her. Of course, they always do. They are as quick as lightning. Lottie looked from Sarah to the doll and back again.
Can she walk?
Yes, at least I believe she can. I believe dolls can do things they will not let us know about. Perhaps, really, Emily can read and talk and walk, but she will only do it when people are out of the room. That is her secret. You see, if people knew that dolls could do things, they would make them work. So, perhaps, they have promised each other to keep it a secret. If you stay in the room, Emily will just sit there and stare. But if you go out, she will begin to read, perhaps, or go and look out of the window. Then, if she heard either of us coming, she would just run back and jump into her chair and pretend she had been there all the time. Lottie's eyes were magnified enormously as she took in the bewitching new concept. It was a delightful thought, however. Lottie was one of the youngest students at Miss Minchin's seminary, and as such, had experience in being told things by older girls that might not be entirely true.
Sarah, does she really walk? Can you truly believe it?
I pretend that I believe she can, and that makes it seem as if it were true.
So it's not true.
When you suppose things, when you pretend them with great vigor, that makes them almost real. If you imagine for yourself that there are fairies in the London sky, if you stare up into the sky thinking about fairies and looking very hard for them, you might almost catch a glimpse of one. And you're not what you saw. Was it real or wasn't it? Were you pretending? Was it a dream or a vision? Did you actually see anything at all? You know that you are pretending, so it is not so terrible if you didn't see anything. But maybe, just maybe, you were right all along. Sometimes stories do come true. Do you understand?
I think so.
Would you like to hold Emily?
Oh, may I? May I really? She is beautiful.
And Emily was put into her arms. Lottie smiled down at the doll, cradling her gently and fingering her fair curls.
They must move very fast to get out of sight when we come in, mustn't they? I wonder if we could learn to move like lightning.
Oh, we couldn't do it. You see, it's a kind of magic.
Maybe people can have magic too.
That is nice to pretend. But whether we can have magic or not, we can certainly have tea. The weather was warm and fine, the skies of London unusually clear. As such, Miss Minchin had decided that the proper Sunday outing for her girls was a long walk through parks and gardens. Keep up, keep together, a lady's health is also an important accomplishment. While the temperature outside was not so great in itself, the ceaseless beating of sunlight upon little heads slowly made their Sunday dresses a difficult burden to bear. This is abominable. My complexion will be ruined. I may have to write to my father and complain. My father will hear about this. Okay, Draco Malfoy. She adjusted the position of the parcel on her shoulder and sighed. No proper young lady should be forced to drudge about on foot like this. Is that not why we have horses? Miss Minchin said that horses should have a day of rest on Sundays. As if a horse would know or care what day it is. I deserve a carriage. It is the due of my rank. Lavinia was not the only girl complaining about the walk.
Sarah, Mama, I'm tired.
Everyone is tired.
Sarah, Mama, won't you carry me?
You have to walk for yourself. You're too big for me to carry for long. Besides, it would be undignified. Our Sarah may be many things, but she is not a horse. Perhaps you should ask Ermengarde. Oof. Lavinia, I'm about to push you into the bushes. You shut the fuck up. Ermengarde is great. Lavinia! What did I say? I was only pointing out that she seems to be handling this walk better than Lottie is. Sarah looked at her friend. True enough, though Ermengarde's cheeks were as flushed as anyone else's, she appeared to be walking steadily along without slowing or complaining. Aren't you tired? Or hot? Yes. I always feel tired and hot when we walk back from church, so I'm used to it. But this walk is so much longer. It all seems the same to me. Ermengarde has great endurance. It is a virtue. A soldier must have great endurance and be able to carry on through much more difficult circumstances than this. A soldier might have to walk miles in the sun, in uniform, and carry a heavy pack besides, and be ready to fight when he arrived. Our lives are so much easier, but we must be good soldiers as best we can. If Ermengarde can bear it, then I can bear it. If Jessie can bear it, then I shall have to bear it. What's that supposed to mean? What did you mean? Nothing. I don't want to bear it. I want someone to carry me. Mood. Yeah, okay, Draco. Oh, I'll probably say that a lot with Lavinia around. She's definitely very much like, ugh. She's a time. Doing her route is a time. But yeah, Lottie is a mood. I miss the days when my dad could carry me. I used to be all the time like, carry me, and then he couldn't anymore, and I was like, this is bullshit. I'm gonna complain. Gonna get a new dad. No, it wasn't his fault. He had a bad back, and I was just getting way too big and chubby. I love these little animations. These cute little chibis are so adorable. You have legs. Use them the same as we are. I don't want to. No one is going to carry you, so if you don't walk, you'll be left here all alone. And then it will get dark, and the tigers will come out and eat you up. There aren't any tigers in London. You oughtn't to make things up like that. Well, she likes it when Sarah makes things up. Sarah spoke quickly to heat off the fret of Lottie deciding to cry and fuss. We will all have tea later in my rooms, and I will tell you stories. But first we must return to the school, which means we must walk. Lottie sighed and carried on. Okay. I need a lot of belief and vigor. So what is belief again? Okay. Play with toys. Practice dance. I think that'll be good. I think this is a good one for now. Let's just keep going this way. Yay! Playing. Poop. Dancing. I got a lot more vigor today. Yay, dancing. Ooh, my vigor went up. My belief is still down, but The greatest power Sarah possessed was her power of telling stories, and of making everything she talked about seem like a story, whether it was one or not. Yeah, the music is very calming. I don't know if it was like, if it's, what is it called? Like, oh gosh, what's it called when you find music that's just free to play? I'm so sorry, I can't remember the right name for it right now, but like, I don't know if it's music that you can just find and play for free, or if it's actually the soundtrack of the game. If it's the soundtrack of the game, it's incredibly endearing and beautiful, and I just kind of sit there and go like, it's just such an enjoyable soundtrack to listen to while I read. Everything sounds so good and it just fits so well together. It just really ties the whole story together. This is like music I could fall asleep to. The greatest power Sarah possessed was her power of telling stories and of making everything she talked about seem like a story, whether it was one or not. It was that power which Lavinia and certain other girls were most envious of, and at the same time most fascinated by, in spite of themselves. And it was in service of that power that so many Miss Minchin students had gathered in Sarah's jewel box rooms, seating themselves on chairs or cushions or rugs to listen. The princess sat on the white rocks beside the lagoon, with a shining white lily in her hands, and as she turned in this way and that, she watched its reflection dance across the water below. The waters of the lagoon lay still, crystal clear and green as glass, but the princess could only see her flower in the reflection, and never herself. So she looked, until at last she saw a face in the waters. Not her face, but the face of a merman. Sarah went on to tell of the courtship between the princess and the merman prince, and the girls who listened sighed sweetly and leaned their cheeks against their hands or each other. As they listened, the door to the room swung silently open, and that same dirty figure Sarah had glimpsed before crept into the room, carrying a heavy coal box. The maid was cleaner than she had been on that other day, but seemed just as frightened. She hunched by the fire, afraid even to look at the other children or appear to be listening. She put on pieces of coal cautiously with her fingers so that she might make no disturbing noise, and she swept about the fire irons very softly. But Sarah saw that she was doing her work slowly in the hope of catching a word here and there, and realizing this, she raised her voice and spoke more clearly. The princess took her seat in the great, clear bubble carriage, and a team of 6 seahorses pulled her into the ocean with harnesses woven with pearls. Down into the sea they dove. At first the water grew dark, and the princess was afraid. But then, far below, fluttering and rippling through the depths, there shone a light. The small drudge before the grate swept the heart once, and then swept it again, and finally forgot to play at sweeping at all. The brush hung idly from her fingers, as Sarah described winding grottos beneath the sea, paved with silver sand and lit by glowing sea stars. It was the chorus of mermaids singing that proved her undoing. The forgotten brush slipped from her fingers to clatter against the heart, and drew Lavinia's attention. "What? That girl has been listening!" Thank you, royalty free, thank you. I could not, for the life of me, remember what the heck I was trying to say. Yes, royalty free music. So I don't know if the soundtrack is royalty free or if this was actually composed. I believe the end song was composed actually, and there might be 1 or 2 songs that were like hand picked, I think, but I'm not sure. Either way, thank you guys for giving me the answer. I swear I forget things all the time, so it's really good when I have people who can help me with that. "What? This girl has been listening! Get the broom! Shoo her out!" The culprit snatched up her brush and scrambled to her feet. She grabbed the coal box and simply scuttled out of the room like a frightened insect fleeing for cover. I knew she was listening. Why shouldn't she? She isn't one of us, Sarah. It isn't proper to talk with servants. Unless they are upper servants, like your Mariette. That's all right. I wasn't talking with her. I was telling a story. I do not know whether your papa would like you to tell stories to servant girls, but I know my father wouldn't like me to do it. Okay, Draco. My papa, I don't believe he would mind in the least. He knows that stories belong to everybody. Nothing belongs to everybody. If it did, they'd all have to fight over it. Only loyal Ermengarde took Sarah's side. I think Sarah should tell stories to whomever she wants to tell them. You wouldn't think it wrong if she told stories to Tybalt, would you? I should think it rather odd if she were telling stories to a cat. Oh, please, Sarah, Mama, finish the story. Sarah looked at the room full of eager, upturned faces. No one wished to follow and harass the fleeing maid, but no one wished to go and invite her back again either. She would continue her fairy story, but she would not forget. Okay. don't have enough belief. So we can only see Jessie, or we could see... I have definitely enough sympathy. I have enough patience. So we could either see Lavinia or we could see Jessie. Any options? Anyone we want to pick? And thank you guys once more for Jessie. I could feel that. A lot of people are like, ugh, not Lavinia. Anyone but Lavinia. Fair. I might have to do her last if I ever do this again as like all my playthroughs. But yeah, let's do Jessie.
Sarah, I was wondering, what do you do when you are at tea with Miss Minchin and those people? Does she have you recite a party piece, or dance, or pose? Are there men present?
And one of the interesting things is obviously certain weeks have certain dialogue. So this is like, there was that scene long in the first video we did where she was entertaining folks, and so she's sort of bringing it up now because obviously depending on when you talk to them, you're gonna kind of like, they're gonna talk about things that have already been discussed previously. If you talk to them at the beginning after the thing, it makes more sense, but if you kind of talk to them later, they just kind of bring it back and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. So this is more of a like recap of something that happened previously, but because we haven't gone through all of her story, we're not caught up with the current events. So this is sort of a before thing, but it doesn't like completely mess up the story. It doesn't reject it in any way. It doesn't make it like inconsistent. It's still enough that I could still be like, this could happen at any point of her asking. So that's just if anyone's wondering why she's bringing this up now after the scene before was discussed. It's because it has to follow in order. We don't skip scenes unless they say we're not doing this scene anymore, but the characters, in order to progress with their story, you have to go through each one that is before it.
Are the men present?
Not commonly, and only if their wives are in attendance. I do not think so many men would care for tea with the schoolmistress. I have never been asked to dance or recite. Sometimes she asks me about my lessons, and if I like the classes and the other pupils, which I always say that I do. Sometimes they ask me about books that I don't read, that I have read, which I don't mind, and then Miss Minchin says how clever I am, which makes me uncomfortable. Often Miss Minchin wishes me to converse in French with the lady. They are not usually French women themselves, but they see the language as a charming accomplishment. All of a sudden, Jessie's tones sharpened. Do they actually converse with you as a person, or only as Miss Minchin's pretty toy? Do they ever call on you instead of Miss Minchin? Do you ever see them again? Sarah blinked rapidly. I don't understand. Doesn't it make you angry? Being used like a trinket for Miss Minchin to display? There does not seem any reason for me to be angry. Having tea with visitors is not such a difficult thing. It is like a kind of performance, with attention instead of applause. A performance? I never thought that tea and books in French could be like being on the stage. Jessie spun in place, letting her skirt catch in the air, and sank in a formal curtsy. It was a beautiful position, with her back perfectly straight and the fabric of her dress spread neatly around her. Oui, oui, merci, madame. Please pour again. Not quite like that. Jessie straightened, patting her skirt down to ensure that every ruffle was in place. Will you speak French to me, Sarah? I hardly know what to say when you ask it like that. Say something pleasant. Say that it is a beautiful day, or that your breakfast was delicious, or that I am clever and charming. Vous êtes un jeune fille charmante, mais je ne vous comprends pas toujours. Jessie smiled, although Sarah was not sure she had understood the entire phrase. The language sounds much lovelier from your lips
The language sounds much lovelier from your lips than from those of Monsieur Dufrage. It always sounds beautiful to me. It reminds me of my mother. Oh, did you? Jessie, where are you? Oh, I have to go. I'll visit you later, all right? And she hurried off to answer her best friend's summons. Looking at the heart in her room, Sarah was reminded of the little servant she had seen before. In truth, she had looked for this girl earlier, but had been unable to spot her. But had been unable to spot such a person anywhere in the school. If not for the disagreement with her listeners, Sarah might have thought she had imagined her. Sarah understood that it would cause disruption if she barged into the kitchens to ask questions. She had only one bridge to rely on. Mariette, who is the little girl who makes the fires? Ah, Mademoiselle Sarah, you might well ask that poor little one. She has just recently been taken on as a scullery maid. Although scullery is the least of it, she is sent to do every task that no one else wants. She blacks the boots and grates, she carries the coal scuttles up and down the stairs, she scrubs the floors and the windows. I think she has not had enough to eat for years. She is older than her height would tell, and so timid. If I try to speak to her, her little eyes look to pop right out of her head. Hey, welcome. Hi, Technomancer. Good to see you. Very glad you guys are here. My 3 friends are here. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm doing a little recording. I thought it would be a nice, fun thing to get back into it since it's the morning and I have a lot more time to record. And obviously this will be up on Twitch for a little, and eventually I'm going to have all the things that I posted. Okay, I'll see you later, Trinity. See you soon. But I'm going to basically take all this and later post it to YouTube, so it'll be up there for anyone who just wants to catch whatever they missed. So that'll be really fun. I think that'll be really good, because I know Twitch only keeps it for a couple days, and then they kind of get rid of it. So I'm going to save these and have these posted somewhere else. On our Lesby Gamers channel, because I thought that would be a nice thing to have it. Like, we have our playthroughs, and then we'll have a separate section for like streams and stuff. So yeah, it's so good to have you guys. So I'm gonna keep reading, and I hope you enjoy. Oh, what is her name? I hear that called often enough. Becky do this, Becky do that. Everyone below stairs orders her about. Becky. If life were a story, Becky might be the ill-used heroine, and perhaps the fairy godmother might come to her rescue. You have a kind heart, mademoiselle. Your papa would be proud. Now, stand up straight. Let me have a look at you. Oh, all right. Just as I thought, you are growing taller. I am? Sarah looked down at herself. I don't feel any different. How much have I changed since I've been here? You are at that age, after all. I will have to alter a few things. How tall I will grow before I see my papa again. Okay, we got to do a lot of studying, because we not so smart right now. I'm also gonna need grace and belief. Tea party. Write in diary. And let's do another tea party. So read a book, read a book. That should hopefully give me something to do. Okay, let's go this route. Give me a lot of books. Okay, I'll take it. Reading. Reading. Visiting. Writing. Visiting. Okay. I need a lot more knowledge, but okay. Sarah, come and see.
A number of students were drawn to the sound of Ermengarde's excitement. It was not often that a girl would call for such attention in her bedroom, particularly not quiet Miss St. John. What is it?
Look, through the window there, that tree outside. Can you see it?
From the door to the room, Lavinia smirked. I should hope that she can see the tree outside, or else she needs eyeglasses.
Hush!
What do you want me to see, Ermengarde?
There's a nest in the branches there, and there are eggs in it. Soon there will be baby birds. That's darling, isn't it?
Babies?
Where?
Must everyone come into my room? If you do not wish to attract attention in the future, do not bellow.
Where are the babies?
They're still inside the eggs, Lottie. There will be baby birds sometime in the future.
Can baby birds see inside eggs?
I don't know. No, I think they're asleep.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a bird for a pet? You could feed it from your hand, and it would sing to you.
Baby birds are not wonderful. They're horrible pink-skinned monsters with no eyes. Disgusting.
Monsters?
No, they aren't very pretty when they're born, but they change as they grow up. A lot of things do. Soon little birds are covered with fuzz all over. Fluffy chicks are adorable. But then they grow up and learn to fly. Even if I tried to keep a bird as a pet, it would probably fly away. There were people in India who kept parrots as pets, not even in cages. They can be trained to ride on someone's shoulder. My papa knew a man who gave his bride-to-be a parrot that he taught to recite love poetry to her.
How romantic. I don't think a bird is a very romantic gift. What if she didn't want a pet? What if it pulled her hair?
Lavinia reached out and tugged at a strand of Jessie's long red hair.
Quah! My beloved is mine, and I am here. She feedeth among the lilies. Quack!
Stop that! She swatted Lavinia's hand away.
Are you going to take one of the eggs out of the nest to raise it?
Oh no, that wouldn't be right. Little birds need their parents to survive. Jessie combed her hair back into place with her fingers. At least until their parents shove them out of the nest. Birds do that, don't they?
Do they, Sarah Mama?
Only when it's time for the young ones to learn to fly. After all, they can't stay eggs forever. Okay. Oh no, we can only really see Mariette, and we can only really see Lavinia. Does anyone want to see them? We can also, there is the thing to skip this weekend, so we won't trigger an event, but we will be able to save, because every time we pick an event, it subtracts some of the skills that we've gained. So by the time it's the next week, we'll have less skills. If we skip the event, we miss out on a certain character, but we're able to save our skills for later and gather them up. And it seems like we're kind of going for Ermengarde, and we can't do Jessie, and I don't think anyone wants to do Lavinia, and we're a little far now to, I think, get everything from Mariette. We're kind of far in the point where I think it's hard to get a lot of people except for Ermengarde, probably Jessie, and the new girl when she shows up, who I think people are starting to clue in on who it's going to be next. But, so, how about we just skip this week, and we'll see about next week, and hopefully that'll be week 14, so hopefully we'll be able to talk to Ermengarde.
A new week.
Girls, gather around, if you please. Today I've arranged a special outing for your edification. Oh, no problem. Welcome back. So we skipped the week. We skipped talking to anyone, Trinity, just because we wanted to save, or I wanted to at least save up for next week so we would have more stuff. So, yeah, thank you. I'm glad you were able to fix your Wi-Fi problems. We will be attending the British Museum of Natural History. Natural? Does that mean plants?
Ugh, I hope not. There's nothing edifying about plants. It could be interesting to attend a museum of plants with people who know all about them and can tell their stories. You mean gardeners? Maybe we'll get to play in a garden? Quiet now, form up, let's go. Ah! It's gonna eat me! I can't eat you, Lottie. It's dead. It's not a real dinosaur. It's a former dinosaur. It's dead. It's gonna fall on me. I don't think it would fall. It's really rather interesting. It's an amazing find. It's disturbing. It's a monster. It's marvelous. Jessie shivered and took Lottie's hands in hers. Come on. Let's go find something to look at that isn't dead. I think that everything in the museum may be. And then we will look at the walls. They are rather pretty walls. You'll look at the exhibits with me, won't you, Sarah? Yes, of course. Are you coming, Lavinia? No, I want to look at this one a while longer. I'll catch up with the two of you in a few minutes. Two? You are here, aren't you? Right. Sarah wondered if this was the first time that Lavinia had ever preferred Ermengarde's company to Jessie's. Okay, I need knowledge. I just need a lot of knowledge. Let's see. Let's write in diary, and then let's do some tutoring, which I think. Okay, let's give that a shot. Give me book. Yay! I know. Yeah, the new maid. It'll definitely be the new maid is who we're probably gonna see writing. Are we getting some friendship finally? Ah, poop. Oh well. Well, we got a ton of knowledge, I think. Sarah was awoken from her sleep by the sound of knocking. Ah, que se passe-t-il? It's all right. I'll get the door. Lottie? Sarah, Mama! The younger girl clung to Sarah. I had a bad dream, and the monster was gonna eat me, and then I woke up, and it was dark, and I thought I saw something. Bones! There were bones in my room! Monster bones! Shh, it's all right. Mariette, where are my slippers? The maid brought the fluffy white shoes for Sarah to slip her feet into. I will walk you back to your room and show you that it's safe. They went into the hallway together, two little girls in the dark. You're not mad? I woke you up. Well, I want to sleep, but you want to sleep too. And if you're too afraid, you can't sleep. But if I can help you, then we both can. Lottie blinked her eyes a few times but said nothing. There we are. See? No bones, just a tree's shadow. Right. She paused at the door. Sarah, Mama? I didn't really think there were bones in my room. I mean, I thought it, but I didn't really believe it was true. I knew that it wasn't. I just wanted to feel better. I'm sorry. Sarah nodded slowly. Sometimes when you pretend things, even if you know behind the doors in your mind that they're not quite real, they still feel as if they were. It isn't wrong to believe in what you pretend. Lottie smiled. I will pretend that I'm going to have good dreams. That is a very nice thing to pretend. I believe I will too. And with that, she returned to her bed. Yay! Well, we still can't get... So, finally, Ermengarde! It's time! Here we go. The girl we've all been waiting for. When Ermengarde went looking for Sarah, she found her curled up in the window seat,
reading a book. Now, Sarah had confided in Ermengarde some time earlier how much she disliked being interrupted when she was deeply absorbed in a fictional world. People who are fond of books know the feeling of irritation which sweeps over them at such a moment. The temptation to be unreasonable and snappish is one not easy to manage. Sarah had described it thus: "It makes me feel as if someone had hit me, and as if I want to hit back." Ermengarde took one look at that intent little face and could not bear the thought of causing it such distress. Therefore, instead of calling for attention, she simply took a seat nearby and waited. Oh. Fair. I feel like Haley would say the same thing. I feel like she would very much also feel that way about when she's reading. I think she mentions how much she doesn't like to be interrupted when she's reading, which, again, very fair. Because she had few friends among the students of Miss Minchin's select seminary, Ermengarde was not entirely a stranger to being left alone with her own thoughts. For the most part, she had diligently tried to turn that extra time to revisions, thumbing through the pages of her lesson books in the hopes that their wisdom would be imprinted upon her. In recent weeks, however, the distraction of Sarah, her stories, and the time they had spent together kept turning Ermengarde's attempts at studying into something more like daydreams. This did not help her lessons, but it did not seem to do them much harm either. Ermengarde glumly considered that it was because she was already as much as a failure as it was possible to be. Oh, Ermengarde, you're not a failure. Eventually, Sarah looked up from her book and noticed her friend nearby. "Oh, Ermengarde, I'm sorry. Were you looking for me?" I didn't want to disturb you." "Well, it's all right now." She laid a ribbon bookmark across the pages and closed her book. "What were you thinking about?" Ermengarde found that she could not simply answer you, even if perhaps it was the truth. I was thinking about the museum that we went to. Do you remember? The guide said that the flying dragon skeleton, the pterodactyl, was found by a woman." Sarah nodded. "Mary Anning." "I forgot her name." "You remembered the important part, pterodactyl." She blushed and covered her mouth, ashamed at correcting Sarah in anything, but Sarah only nodded and indicated that she should go on. "The woman who found them wasn't even a lady," he said. "She never went to a grand school, but she learned all about creatures by walking up and down the beach in Dorset and finding the bones. I thought, if we were planning trips around England, that perhaps we should go to the seaside. We could even find seashells, even if we don't find any fossils." "Yes." And now the book was set aside on the window seat, as Sarah's imagination drew her to her feet. "There are cliffs along the coast in Dorset, aren't there? And where there are cliffs, there might be caves, and where there are caves, there might be dwarves, or trolls, or pirate treasure." "Oh, don't!" Ermengarde clapped her hands over her ears. "You'll get me all confused again, because between what's real and what isn't." "Well, until we've been there, we don't know what's real. There certainly have been real pirates, like Captain Strangeways, or Isaac Gulliver, the king of smugglers. And it is possible that they might have left buried treasure in a cave somewhere." One of Sarah's books had included a history of wars, pirates, and weather-related sailing disasters around the English Channel. She was somewhat glad to have read it after her sea voyage rather than before. "We can't know whether we will find a treasure or not until we have looked for one, and then you will know it and not be confused. You know, I think you don't actually have so much trouble remembering when you have seen or done something yourself. It's only books that you can't remember." "Oh, no, I forget things all the time." "But you remember all sorts of things about flowers, and forest, and birds, and horses. You told me about 2 kinds of celandines, and about your aunt's dogs, and her flower-pressing hobby. You remembered where the fossils came from. You remember things that matter to you. Perhaps it's only books that you can't remember." "But books are what should matter, at least to my father, and Miss Minchin, and you." Sarah laid a hand on Ermengarde's shoulder. I love books. They matter a great deal to me. But people matter more. Oh. Ermengarde. I just want to give her a big old hug. She's so sweet. And just, I really love that message of like, hey, maybe you learn things not through typical, ways that are, it's that like idea of learning as you do things rather than just learning as you're taught. And it's really cool to see that in this story, because in the original story, she was just kind of chalked up to being like dull and plain and kind of dumb, like slow-witted, and they didn't really go into much detail afterwards. There was never this conversation of like, oh, you're not slow, you just have a passion for other things. And so, again, this is why I really like this game, because it goes into detail about more than just like what the book, like it expands on the characters and gives them personalities outside who they were in the books, and characters that you didn't see any of, you're now getting to see that personality shine through, and I think that's so great. Mademoiselle, hold out your arms like so, if you please. Sarah extended her arms, letting them drift into ballet second position. Now over your head, so I can see the fabric stretch. Marriott was making the final adjustments to Sarah's new pink dancing frock, after pointing out that Sarah's change in height meant her old ones no longer fit just so. A touch, just there. Take it off again, if you please, and I'll have it done before your next lesson. Sarah wiggled free of the soft fabric and handed it over. It's such a beautiful color, and the skirt is so light. Dancing in that, I should feel like a pink butterfly floating on the breeze, or a fairy princess with wings like rose petals. Roses, that is what it needs. A wreath of roses for your head. I will find some buds at the florist. The mental picture of herself decked out in a pink dancing frock with a crown of flowers was so delightful that Sarah laughed aloud. Sometimes life is so beautiful, I wonder if I have pretended it into being. Mademoiselle does have a very good imagination. No, it is the magic. The magic shapes our lives and makes everything wonderful. Sarah's heart was lighter than a feather. We're gonna need more knowledge, and we're gonna need more grace. Grace and belief. Oh gosh, okay. Read a book, practice dance, write in diary. Okay, let's go. Yay! Reading. Dancing. Writing. Alright. Not too bad. Sarah's room at Miss Minchin's seminary were not like the rooms of ordinary pupils who were meant to be satisfied with simple necessities. There were pictures and books and curious things from India. There was a sofa and a low, soft chair. Emily sat in a chair of her own, with the air of a presiding goddess, and there was always a glowing fire and a polished grate. Because the room was such a nice, bright, pretty place, the little scullery maid known as Becky liked to save it until the end of her afternoon's work. If luck was with her, she could snatch a few minutes to sit alone in the soft chair and look around, thinking about the wonderful good fortune of the child who owned such surroundings. On this afternoon, when she had sat down, the sensation of relief to her short, aching legs had been so wonderful and delightful that it had seemed to soothe her whole body, and the glow of warmth and comfort from the fire had crept over her like a spell. Her hard-working young body was tired past the limits of endurance. As she looked at the red coals, a tired, slow smile stole over her smudged face. Her head nodded forward without ever being aware of it, and her eyelids drooped. Dun dun dun! Wait. What the? Oh no! Somebody just... First, why would a delivery person just yeet a package over the fence? That's not okay. Are they not able to get to your front door, or were they just being lazy? I hope it wasn't anything that would like spoil or would go bad. I can't imagine. I have a delivery thing for Tokyo Treat, and I would be super hella pissed if my like snacks got thrown over a bush and I couldn't find them for like days. Okay, so they were just being an asshole. That's not cool. They should have like come up and knocked, or at least like put it right by the gate, like right inside. I don't know. Yeah, like put it by the driveway. Why would you eat it? This package is empty. Yeet! Like, that's so rude. I'm so sorry about that. I hope nothing was damaged. I hope your package was fine and that it was safe and that there were no problems. Oh. Okay. Yeah. They should have put it like right. They should have put it in a clear spot. Like not in they should not have done that. That's just not okay. Oh. I'm so sorry. That sounds terrible. I wish I could offer you some tea and biscuits in this time. I wish I could be a good host like Sarah and offer you a nice, comfortable... Well, okay. So, hopefully the thing in the plastic bag doesn't, you know, I hope the actual item doesn't smell like cat pee. But that was just not cool, and I would complain to whoever the service is about your package being just sloppily delivered like that. And at least you can wash it, so that's always good. But still, I'm very sorry. Yeah. That's very good. So I'm sorry to hear about that, Technomancer. Oh, no, not the Christmas present. How dare they? That's Grandma's Christmas present. Not okay. So sorry to hear that. I'm sorry. I feel so bad. Let me take a quick sip of water, and I'll continue. Thus it was that, when Sarah returned to her rooms, her mind full of song and dance, she found an empty coal box on her floor and a maid so deeply asleep that she might have been an enchanted princess. Oh, that poor thing! Becky looked nothing like any illustration of Sleeping Beauty. Her gown was stained, her face smeared with soot, and her poor little kerchief hung half off her head. Even her face, beneath the dirt, was a plain one. She looked only like an ugly, stunted, worn-out little scullery drudge. But Sarah was not cross to find such a figure in her own favorite chair. The ill-used heroine of the story. Now at last I can talk to her. When she wakes. She crept closer to the chair, walking quietly on raised feet, and stood there, looking at her. I'd wish she'd wake herself. I don't wish to awaken her, but Miss Minchin will be cross if she finds out. I'll just wait a few minutes. I'll just stare at her a bit. Watch her a little. You've heard of bird watching. This is people watching. This is maid watching. She took a seat on the edge of the table and sat swinging her slim legs. If Miss Minchin came looking for Becky, she was sure to be scolded. But she's so tired. So tired. At that moment, Sarah's indecision was interrupted by a popping sound from the fire. A piece of flaming coal had broken and shifted. Becky did not realize at first that she had fallen asleep. She only remembered sitting down for a moment and the gentle glow, and now here she found herself staring in a wild alarm at the wonderful pupil who sat perched quite near her like a fairy. Becky sprang to her feet, clutching at her kerchief to set it right. Oh, miss, I asked your pardon, miss. Oh, I do, miss. Sarah put her dainty feet on the ground and stood. Don't be frightened. It doesn't matter the least bit. I didn't go to do it, miss. It was the warm fire, and me being so tired. It weren't impertinence. Sarah broke into a friendly little laugh. You were tired. You cannot help it. You're not really awake yet. Ain't you angry, miss? Ain't you gonna tell the missus? No, of course I'm not. I know I shouldn't have touched your things, miss. Sarah shook her head. Well, we are just the same. I'm only a little girl like you. It's just an accident that I am not you, and you are not me. An accident, miss? Have you done your work? Dare you stay here a few minutes? Here, miss? Me? If your bedrooms are finished, perhaps you might stay a tiny while. I thought perhaps you might like a piece of cake. Cake? Me? Yes, of course. The next 10 minutes seemed to Becky like sort of a fever dream. The show pupil opened a cupboard and produced a thick slice of cake, all for her, and actually seemed enthusiastic about watching Becky eat it. In between bites, Sarah managed to get answers to a few questions. A few weeks ago, you were watching me through the area railing, weren't you? Yes, miss, Once I saw a princess. Oh gosh, me trying to do a Cockney accent is very not gonna. Once I saw a princess. I was standing in the street with the crowd outside Covent Garden, watching the swells go into the opera, and there was one everyone stared at most. They says to each other, that's the princess. She was a growed-up young lady, but she was pink and lace all over and flowers and all, as pretty as anything. That's what you look like, miss, that day. You look like her. I've often thought that I should like to be a princess. I wonder what it feels like. I believe I will begin pretending I am one. Ain't she already? Oh. From elsewhere in the school, there was the sound of a door slamming. Oh, miss, I've got to go. Come back someday when you have more time, and I can finish that story you were listening to. I'm always putting new bits to it in my head. Oh, miss, if you do that, I won't mind how heavy the coal box was, or what cook done to me, if I might have that to think of. She bobbed an awkward little curtsy, grabbing for her kerchief when it slipped again, and then hurried from the room. Yay! So, we finally unlocked Becky, and as we see, Ermengarde's event is complete, which means she's no longer gonna have anything for us to work on. So this is sort of the final. Now that we've done her, we don't have to worry about her until the second part, which we'll know when the second part comes. In the meantime, we could at this point try and focus on one other girl. It could be almost anyone. Like I said, I know Lavinia, after a certain point, which is going to be coming up soon, she's going to be locked out. My best suggestions are probably either Jessie or Becky, now that Becky's revealed. And she's here now, so we can finally do her. But what do you guys want to do? Are you guys thinking Becky, or are you guys thinking Jessie, or... I guess it doesn't matter. We could just kind of flip around and look at anyone until, flip around and look at anyone until, we get to the end. We could just focus on Ermengarde, and so just kind of mess around until we get to the second part, if we just want to. Becky? Alright, Becky does sound like a good choice. Give me 1 second. I will BRB. So I'm going to leave it on this thing right here. Okay. Hey, congrats. I'm glad that one wasn't in the bush. I'm glad you got your RAM. Oh, I'm waiting for a package too. I'm trying to wait for my Tokyo Treat package, so that'll be really fun. I was thinking, if it's okay with you guys. I think I'm going to get to the end of the first act, and then I'm going to take a break from this game and probably switch to a platformer, just to give my voice a rest, if that's okay. I still want to get to the story. I'm still really enjoying this, but my throat is a little sore, so I think I'm going to switch over to something a bit more, like, gameplay-wise than talking-wise, if that's cool with you guys. But for now, let's go see Becky, since we have her. Sarah came upon the little maid hard at work in the school corridors. Becky? Oh, miss! So startled was she at being addressed that she fumbled the bucket of sooty brushes she carried, nearly dropping them. Sarah rushed forward to grab the handle and prevent a spill. Miss, you oughtn't. You muck up your nice dress, you will. It's all right. I'm being careful. Please, miss, you shouldn't. It's not right. Well, you are the expert, of course, so I will leave things in your hands. Expert? Aren't you? I'm sure you're good at your work. Never heard it put that way, miss. Mariette says that everyone below stairs takes advantage of you and asks you to do too many things. They ought to thank you and tell you that you are doing a good job. Becky looked so baffled at the idea of being thanked for her labors that Sarah could not let the matter rest. Is Miss Minchin very unkind to you? Shouldn't say nothing about the missus, miss. Sarah looked up and down the hall, listening. No one is anywhere about. Come into my rooms, if you feel safer that way. Oh, I shouldn't, miss. It's my first job, miss. First job in a real house, like. It's odd work, but at night I've got my own room and my own bed. Never had that at the workhouse, miss. You didn't have a bed? Room's full of beds, miss, but more full of girls. Everybody squeezes. It's good in the winter, innit? Keeps you warm. Baby. Sarah did not lack for imagination, but she simply did not have the frames of reference to picture a workhouse dormitory with its rows of narrow beds crammed together. The smallest sleeping quarters she had ever seen were those on board the ship which brought Sarah and her papa to England. Sometimes it gets real spooky up top with the wind, but it's still my room, so it's not so bad. If the missus hadn't given me this job, I don't know what I'd do. She is grateful for so little. Listen, are you done with your chores for a while? Would you like to come have cake again? Oh, miss, I'd like that, but I've got these other rooms still to do and the curtains and... She looked absolutely crestfallen at the idea of abandoning the cake, but still determined not to give up on her duties. Such unrewarded diligence. Miss Minchin does not deserve her. It's all right. I promise. I will keep the cake and wait for you. You can come by whenever you are finished for the day. Even if it's evening, miss, there's all eat and cook sour today. If you work so late, then you need a treat even more, don't you? I'll stop getting in your way now. I don't want to get you in trouble for talking to me. I will see you later when you can. I promise. Thank you, miss. I am just... so sorry. I cannot find a proper voice for her. I am butchering it so bad. Oh, I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm not on my game today, but I still hope you guys are enjoying yourselves, and I appreciate it. Sarah was sitting all curled up in the lovely soft chair by the fire, the same chair in which she had found Becky asleep not so long ago. Her stockinged feet were folded up beneath her elbows on the chair arm, and her chin in her hands. If I were a princess, a real princess, I could go among the populace in a grand coach and scatter Largus. Everyone who is tired and poor and hungry, I can make their lives better. That's what a princess ought to do. Even if I am only a pretend princess, I can still invent little things to do for people. She thought back to Becky's amazed delight at being warmed and fed. It took so little to make a difference for her. She was just as happy as if it had been Largus. From now on, I'll pretend that to do things people like is scattering Largus. Then I can truly be a princess. The thought swelled up inside her, making her head feel quite light. Before she knew it, Sarah was sitting up straight in her chair, her arms at her sides, and her feet hanging down, just like a little princess on her throne. Roll credits. Thank you. My hope, though, is that I do want to eventually get into voice acting, which would be very nice. But I need to have... I guess there are voice actors who just do their typical voice. They don't need to do every accent in the book. So I guess that's I should be happy with. Let's just keep doing Tea Party. That seems to give me most of what I want. We could do that, and then we can do that. We'll go for a walk at the end. Visiting. 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 Alright, nice. Yay! We got a lot of grace. Oh, we need a lot more sympathy, but yay.
Mademoiselle, there is a letter for you. A letter from Papa? She took the paper into her hands, not without the faintest twinge of dismay. She was glad, beyond glad, to have a word from her beloved Papa, and yet such a letter made her realize that she had not much thought about him for days and days. Papa would be glad that I have found so many things to fill my days. I should not feel upset. Banishing guilt, she drew out the letter and began to absorb its contents. My dear little Mrs. This letter was far more fulfilling than the earlier missive from Bombay. He told her of many things he had seen and done, and how people that she had met in India were getting on, and it was all quite agreeable. And then, the most exciting news. Oh, thank you.
I can do like a little kid voice pretty well. There are some things I can do really well. There are other things I can't do as well.
A friend of mine from my schoolboy days came to visit me here in India, quite unexpectedly, to let me know of a piece of good fortune. He owns a large tract of land, too large to have seen every detail of it himself, but recently has made a remarkable discovery, a deposit of diamonds. He is now engaged in developing the mines to bring out these diamonds, and if all goes as he most confidently expects, he will become possessed of such wealth as makes one Disney to think of. And because we were fond of each other in our school days, he thought of your old Papa and offered me the opportunity to share in this enormous fortune by becoming a partner in his scheme. Diamonds? What is that? Is your Papa sending you a gift? You are too young to wear diamonds in English fashion. Diamond mines. Sarah's mind was filled with images from the Arabian Nights, deep caverns beneath the earth, sparkling stones studded into the walls and ceilings, dark-eyed dwarfs digging them free with heavy picks, heaps of discarded treasure shimmering with enchantments. Can such marvelous things really be true? It was all too much to put into words. She handed the letter to Mariette to read, then picked up Emily from her chair. Have you ever seen a diamond cavern, Emily? Have any of your fairy friends been there? Perhaps they could say hello to my Papa for us. She hugged the doll to herself, her eyes glimmering crystal bright. Someday we will see them together, my Papa and I. Yay! Okay.
Yeah, see, last chance, it says right there. When it says it's the last chance, that means, like, if you want to get her all together, you want to, like, at this point, if you were going for Lavinia, you wanted to be, like, near the end of her route to get this. But if we do this now, the next day, we're going to be just locked out of everything else. So, at this point, it's very good to just kind of, obviously, not focus on her. Again, we have Ermengarde done, so we can focus on somebody else. We can, if it also helps anyone, we can keep going with Becky. We can go with Jessie, who I think we have a little more story with, but either way should be okay. From what I know in the game, it doesn't matter. Depending on who you pick, certain characters will show up in the second act, whereas the characters you didn't focus on won't. Except for Becky. Whether you focus on her or not, she always shows up in the second act. So even if you don't pick her, or we don't get all of her dialogue, we'll still be able to see her second part if we want. Although, probably by that time, we're gonna kind of focus on Ermengarde, because at a certain point in the second act, they kind of like, they want to put you into a certain character. So they're like, hey, just letting you know, if you pick this character again, this is sort of where you're gonna kind of be stuck on their route, is sort of who you're gonna focus on. Is this okay? Which is really good. I like that they let you know that from the beginning. So, but right now we can still kind of see everyone, still get more info on anyone. Do we want to keep going with Becky, or do we want to keep going with Jessie? Because who knows, we picked Ermengarde, but if we see Jessie or all of Becky's, we might change it at the end in the second act. 'Cause the second act, a lot of things happen. So, do we want to keep going Becky, or do we want to go Jessie? Those are, I guess, my two suggestions right now, but it's up to you. We can also just skip the week and get on to the main story if you don't want to see anymore. If we want to get closer to the first act, or the end of the first act. So I'm down to hear whatever you guys want. This music's so good. Ooh. I'd say Becky, but either is cool. Fair. I don't know if we'll have, well, we might not have enough time to get all of Jessie. I don't know. But, so maybe it might be easier to do Becky since she was last and we'll have more time to catch her. But I forget that this thing goes a little longer. So, I see Becky, so we'll go Becky. Becky leaned back in the soft, comfortable chair and listened as Sarah spun a story for her. This tale involved a king who had 2 daughters but no sons, and who was under a terrible curse that only a hero who traveled the witch's road could lift. Each daughter swore to do her best to save her father, and thus they each outfitted themselves and went on their separate journeys. The elder had hair of gold, and she wore bright silver armor and carried a thin-bladed sword with a hilt like a bell. The younger had hair of midnight and wore a dress of soft flowing blue. She carried no weapons other than her words and her kind heart. Becky was so entranced by Sarah's voice that she forgot for minutes at a time to keep eating the slice of cake she had been handed. The elder princess chose the fiercest horse in the royal stables and galloped along the witch's road at great speed until she came to a metal bridge over the river. When the horse's hooves pounded onto the metal, they made such a clang that the horse was startled and the eldest daughter was flung from her saddle. The younger princess did not want to tire her favorite pony by making him carry her, so she walked down the witch's road holding his reins. They went much more slowly, but at last they reached the bridge. Her gentle pony didn't want to touch the metal bridge, but he trusted the youngest daughter, and she soothed and petted him, and together they crossed the river. As Sarah's story continued, the kind young daughter encountered a monster which terrified her and required her bolder sister's approach to chase it away. Eventually, the 2 princesses learned to work together and progressed to the end of the road. And there, inside the twisted brambles of the witch's hut, they found their father. "Was the curse broken?" "I was cursed," he said, "because I had no sons to rule after me. I built this road myself as a test. But now the 2 of you have learned your strength, and I know that you can rule together." "Oh." Becky folded her hands under her chin and lent out a fond sigh. "Could 2 princesses really rule a kingdom, miss?" "I don't see why not. Our queen was a princess once." "Guess it's so." All of a sudden, she sat bolt upright in the chair. "Blimey, the time! Sorry, miss." "It's all right. I suppose you ought to go." Becky looked dolefully at the thick slice of cake, still half uneaten, that sat before her. Can I take it with me, miss? I've got one pocket here, you see." Tied beneath Becky's apron was a stained old cloth pouch, the surviving half of a discarded pair of pockets from some lady's wardrobe. Sarah did not imagine that any cake held in such a pocket would be pleasant to eat afterwards, but scolded herself that it was not her decision to make. "Of course you can." "Thank you, miss." She happily tipped the plate into her pocket.
I can eat this later up in the attic, miss. I've got to eat it careful, 'cause if I leave crumbs, the rats will come out to get them. Rats? Are there rats there? Lots of 'em, miss. And mostly is rats and mice in attics. You get used to the noise they make scuttling about. I've got so I don't mind 'em so long as they don't run over my pillow. Ugh! You can get used to anything after a bit. You have to, miss, if you're born like I was. I'd rather have rats than cockroaches. Oh, so would I. I think I might manage to make friends with a rat in time, but I don't believe I should like to make friends with a cockroach. Friends? Well, they are creatures just like cats or dogs. They could be friendly. I think Becky needs that food more than the rats do, but I wonder if the rats are hungry too. Perhaps if there are any crumbs in your pocket, you should shake it out from somewhere away from your bed, so that if the rats come out to eat, they won't bother you. That's clever, miss. Perhaps I'll try that. Had Sarah's father invested in any other business venture, it would have held little attention for the rest of the students. Diamond mines, however, captured the imagination, and the girls could not stop whispering. They knew little about the details of mining in faraway lands, but fairy tales they understood, especially with a teller such as Sarah among them. Tell me the part about the dogs again, Sarah, Mamma. Deep underground, beyond the passage with the lamps, there were 4 doorways, and each led to a different kind of treasure: copper, silver, gold, and diamond. The first was the room of copper. Copper lanterns hung from the ceilings, and copper pots lined the walls, and over the floor was spread a blanket of copper coins. But the guardian of this room was a dog with copper eyes as big as saucers, and a mouth full of rough-edged copper teeth. Not everyone was quite so caught up in wonder. It's a silly fancy, like everything else, Sarah says. I don't believe such things as diamond mines actually exist. Well, people have to get them from somewhere. Of course they find diamonds in the earth, but one at a time, surely, not whole mines filled with diamonds. Do you know what a diamond ring cost? Not even a big one. If there were mines full of diamonds, people would be so rich it would be ridiculous. Yeah, Lavinia. Like, somebody like Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. Which is why the phrase,
Now the rich uncle. Gotta eat the rich.
you haven't been introduced to it yet, but the phrase, eat the rich, is a very important one that you shall soon learn in your lifetime. Perhaps Sarah will be so rich that she will be ridiculous. She is ridiculous enough already. Lavinia, do you hate her? No, I do not, but I don't believe her. Conversation died as Miss Minchin walked into the main hall. Girls, gather around, please. I have an announcement to make. We have had some very exciting news regarding the parent of one of our pupils. Starting from today, Sarah Crew will be leading the processions whenever we leave the school grounds. You will look to her as your example. Lavinia could only stare, her mouth agape, her eyes not quite as big as saucers. Looks like Miss Minchin believes in the diamond mines. How dare she! Lavinia clenched her fist against the fabric of her dress and forced a tight smile onto her face. She walked up to take her new place in line. It appears that I will now be walking behind you, Sarah. Oh, it wasn't my idea. Wasn't, though. She said nothing more. Jeffrey Bezos. Eat the rich. We gotta get some of that sympathy. Tea Party still, probably. And belief. Where can I get more belief? No. Let's just keep doing Tea Party. All the Tea Party. Visiting. Still visiting. Alright, looks like we got some. Sarah found Ermengarde in the main hall, wiping tears from her eyes. What is it?
Is something wrong?
Oh, Sarah, do you remember the nest of eggs we saw on the tree a while ago?
Oh, did they hatch?
Yes, 2 weeks ago, but it's dreadful.
What's dreadful?
Tybalt, Miss Minchin's cat, he got out and climbed the tree and killed the babies.
What?
Oh no. They were too young to fly. They couldn't fly away. I don't know if he got them all, but
those poor little things. Sarah's sorrow was more for Ermengarde's disappointment than for the birds. She had only ever seen them as eggs in a distant nest, never as living creatures, and had expected them to fledge and be gone before her thoughts returned to them. But Ermengarde had spotted the nest from her own window, had clearly returned to that window time and again to watch over them, had imagined for herself the companionship they might have shared as pets. Ermengarde had made the baby birds a part of her life, without disturbing their freedom, and for her it was a true loss.
It's not Tybalt's fault.
What?
It's not Tybalt's fault. He's just a cat. Cats bite sometimes. I didn't...
She wiped a hand over her wet face.
I didn't say I was angry at Tybalt.
People can be sad when bad things happen without having to blame anyone for them. Sometimes it isn't anyone's fault.
So, you won't hurt Tybalt?
Of course not.
Why would you think that I... Because I heard cook say that if Tybalt got into her kitchen and ate her chicken again, she'd have him drowned. So I thought you might think like that too.
Ermengarde blinked at Lottie, too confused to be upset. She really said she'd drown him? I'm sure she was joking. Cook does have a temper. Cook's not very nice to Becky. Cook's not very nice to anyone. We don't know that. She might have friends or family elsewhere. She's probably nice to them. Sarah didn't think it was right to condemn a woman she barely knew, even if everything she heard from Becky and Mariette was less than flattering. She's probably nice to Miss Minchin. Miss Minchin loves that cat, though. She'd be very angry if anything happened to him. There, you see, Lottie? Cook wouldn't hurt Tybalt. No one's going to hurt him. Sarah hugged Ermengarde close. I'm sorry about your birds. Why don't you both come up to my room for a while? And Sarah led her friends away, prepared to pamper them and distract them from their worries, like the perfect hostess. Yeah, so, event has expired, so we can't do her anymore. Not that most of us wanted to. Ooh, my throat is a little... Yeah, I know, right? This teacher. Oh, boy. Just wait. Just you wait. I want to say... It gets better before it gets worse, but no. To Becky. Sarah picked up her doll and smiled at her. You were looking a trifle tired today, Emily. You must have been very busy while I was out of the room. She gave the doll's curls a careful brushing, then tucked her into her own little cradle bed, arranging her hands to lie over the fabric cover. I think you'll feel better after a nap. I'm hoping that Becky will come to visit today, but we'll try to be quiet so that we don't disturb you. With the air of an expectant hostess, Sarah moved around the room, running her hands over shelves and turning cushions to be just so. Yeah. What are you talking? Oh, guys. Oh, I'm just saying, there's just a bit of, drama, little children drama. You know how it is. Lavinia's gonna be jealous for a while, but she'll get over it. It's just the typical little drama. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to concern yourselves over. It's fine. We're fine. Don't worry about it. The room was already perfectly neat, of course. Sarah was not an untidy child by nature, and anything she might have disarranged since Becky's last visit would have been set straight by Mariette. Still, it seemed the sort of thing a princess ought to do. Looking your best shows that you care about your visitors. Having reassured herself that everything was just so, she settled in at her desk with a sheet of sums to work for the classroom. 2 pounds, 12 shillings, 8 1/4 pence, plus 1 pound, 14 shillings, 5 1/4 pence. That's 2 farthings, 8 5 pence makes 1 shilling and 1 penny. Addition and subtraction were simple tasks, but the complications of British currency were such that they needed to be practiced over and over again to be certain one did not forget. That sounds awful. I can't even. My brain is just like. Granted, I grew up on American currency, so I'm sure that would be complicated to somebody else for the first time. But I'm just sitting here listening to British. I don't know if this is still British currency. I know this was British currency in the old days, but I don't know if they still use all the pence and shillings and things of that nature. But that just sounds like a time, and I'm not good at math. I'm gay. I'm not good at math, so I would be even worse at this kind of math. Becky's arrival was even more delightful when it meant putting those repetitive worksheets away.
Becky! Come in, please sit down.
She lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper.
Emily is resting today, so we must be calm and quiet for her sake. That's all right, miss. I'm tired today, too. I made a wonderful discovery to share with you. I was out at the shops, looking in windows for things that might fit neatly into your pocket and not fall into crumbs. Look! With a proud smile, she produced a tray of 3 little meat pies, sealed up tight with glazed crust. Becky's eyes quite sparkled. Oh, miss, them will be nice and filling. It'll fit its fillingness that's best, miss. Sponge cakes and heavenly thing, but it melts away like, if you understand, miss. They'll just stay in your stomach. These'll just stay in your stomach.
I don't believe it would be a good thing if a pie stayed in your stomach for always. That line of thinking led somewhere indelicate, so she quickly abandoned that. I do hope they will be satisfying. I wish you had told me before about the cake. I could have brought something else before this. Beef sandwiches, perhaps, or rolls and bologna sausages.
All that? For me, miss?
Of course, why not? I like to share food with you. I like to see you enjoy yourself. None of the girls here ever enjoy cook's meals half as much. But I might never have guessed you wanted something other than cake. Why didn't you tell me?
Oh, please, miss, no one's ever been so kind to me before, not even my own mum. How could I ask you for more? How could I?
Were you afraid that if you asked me for something, and I said no, that I would be angry with you?
Yes. No, miss, but you've done so many nice things for me, and if still I weren't happy, that'd be right sour of me, you see. You wouldn't want somebody sour. Oh, Becky, you are never sour, not one bit. But we are friends, you and I.
Friends, miss?
Of course we are, and a friend isn't upset when a friend asks her for something, even if she might have to say no. I could have done this for you sooner, if you hadn't kept it a secret what you wanted. Let's promise never to keep secrets from each other ever again. She held out her hand to seal the pack. Becky started to reach for it, then hesitated. Never at all, miss. What if there are some secrets that are nice, like surprises?
Oh, I didn't think of that. You were very clever. Becky smiled in nervous agreement. I will make a better promise then. Let's promise to always trust each other if we need help. All right?
All right.
They clasped hands. The scullery maid's palm was rough and calloused, but her fingers curled sweetly around Sarah's. Good. Becky's so sweet. I just love her. And now we come to the complete opposite. Lavinia strode through the halls, Tybalt clasped to her bosom, crooning little songs to him and paying no attention to any fur that might be shed onto her dress.
She's been carrying that cat around all day.
Gossiping about your betters, Ermengarde? You had better be careful. Bad little birds who squawk and squeal get gobbled up whole. Lavinia threw her head back and laughed. Tybalt stirred in her grasp, yowling faintly. Shh, my prince. Yes, you are a good kitty. Shh. That's what cats do, you know. They eat the weak. The sound of her humming marked her passage as she moved out of sight. I think she set that cat on the birds on purpose.
I'm sure she wouldn't do that. You heard what she said.
She was laughing at me.
That doesn't mean that she... No, I won't believe it. She said what she said to taunt you, and that was very unkind of her, but she isn't a wicked person. Not really. It would be wrong to accuse her of something so dreadful. You are too charitable. Lavinia is horrid. I know. You're always kind, and I'm glad that you are, but she doesn't deserve it. It isn't so much about what she deserves. Kindness isn't something you should have to earn. A princess should always be kind, whether it's to a noble, or a peasant, or a witch. Sometimes, being kind to a wicked witch is the only way to break her spell, or to make a friend. I wish Lavinia would be kind to others. So do I. I think we'll just keep doing Tea Party. It seems like it's giving us the most. I hope you guys are enjoying this still. It's been going on for quite a while, but I hope you guys are having fun. Again, I know this game is a little more soft, a little more simple, a lot more reading and dialogue. I hope my voice is just enjoyable to listen to. I know it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but it's definitely very fun and to me, and I just really like this story.
Sarah, may I come in?
Of course.
This may be a foolish question, but do you know where Lavinia has gone?
Is she not in her room?
No.
Then I don't know where she is. Perhaps she went out to have an ice?
She must have gone out somewhere, but she didn't tell me that she was going. I feel like in the past weeks she's spoken more to Tybalt than to me. She's obsessed with that cat. She's even taken it into her room to sleep with. I'm supposed to be her best friend, and
Jessie looked down, hugging her arms around herself. Sometimes when you're feeling sad, it's easier to talk to someone who can't talk back. Someone who will just listen. She looked over at the doll displayed in Pride of Place. Emily is a very good listener.
You think Lavinia has trouble she isn't telling me about?
I don't know. You know her better than I do.
I would turn myself into a cat if I could, if that would make her happy.
It doesn't usually go well in stories. When a princess is turned into a cat, that means she's under a curse.
Oh, I'm no princess.
You could be, if you wanted to. Anyone can be a princess, if they're willing to work hard at it.
That's only pretend.
I think princesses who live in castles are a kind of a pretend too, because we pretend that they're different than we are, just because of where they were born.
You are a queer sort of girl sometimes, Sarah Croom.
Maybe you're the one who was born different. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad it could be very relaxing and pleasant. As Lavinia would say, peasant. But, yay. So it seems like we can't access Becky's until week 23. So I guess at this time, do we kind of just want to focus on Jessie at this point? Or do we want to try any of the other characters? I don't think it really matters. But we won't be able to see Becky's until week 23. So in the meantime, we could see more of Jessie's since we've kind of been seeing more of her route than the other two, but we could also see Mariette's or Lottie's, whichever one you guys want. Just let me know, and I'm down to pick whoever. But thank you. I'm glad it's relaxing and pleasant. It's a very charming game. It's one of my favorites. I wish I could go into more detail why it's just one of my favorites, and it's a time watching this game and just enjoying it. Lavinia is acting very weird. And he is good? Okay. I guess let's just do Jessie for now because we can, and we've done a little bit with her, so we might be able to get Jessie if we're fast enough, but we'll have to see. As Sarah walked to the front hall of Miss Minchin's seminary, she heard a strange thumping noise coming from the classroom, which should have been empty at such an hour. Has something fallen? Opening the door, she found Jessie in mid-leap, practicing dance moves in the unused space.
Oh!
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you.
That's all right. Come in and close the door.
Sarah took a seat on one of the former benches.
You like dancing, don't you?
All young ladies dance.
She pressed a palm to her chest and sighed dramatically. In the ballroom, the beautiful but impoverished daughter of faded nobility can catch the eye of a landed gentleman, and a perfect match will be made. If you have 2 left feet, then beware, you might be sent home in disgrace. Sarah laughed, swinging up her feet to demonstrate their clumsiness, even though she was privately skeptical. Surely no one would be rude enough to tell a lady to her face that she was a dreadful dancer and unworthy to be present. Well, perhaps Lavinia would. And Jessie might agree with her. She usually agrees with whatever Lavinia says. But, Sarah, I was wondering, what sort of dancing do they have in India? The natives, I mean. I'm sure people like that don't have ballrooms, but there must be something. Everyone likes to dance sometimes, even servants. I don't know very much about it. My papa's friend said that the dances the natives do are called Nautch, and that they are impolite, and therefore the British are trying to make them stop. I have never seen such a dance. I'm not sure what makes a dance impolite. Being danced by a girl who's too pretty. In the opera ballet, the patrons demand pretty girls for the stage, but then because they are pretty and performing for the eyes of men, they sometimes call them not very nice things. I suppose India's not so different after all. Or perhaps my papa's friends did not know the truth. My ayah said that the natives' dances are called Kathak, and that they dance in the temples to tell stories about their gods. I would have liked to see a story told in dance, but my ayah said it took many years of training, and she could not show me. The ballet tells stories too, but I can't imagine that India dances anything like ballet. With a sigh, Jessie swept her long hair away so that she could sit beside Sarah. I do love to dance, especially ballet. It would be lovely to be a ballerina, on stage, admired by everyone. But no English girl could ever be a great ballerina. Everyone knows that it is the French and Italians who make the best dancers. You are half French, Sarah? Do you have any hidden dancing talents? I don't think so. Maybe you don't know all of your talents yet. I'm sure I don't. I believe that we all have talents and strengths that we don't know, that we will discover when we need them the most. That's the way that stories work. It's magic. But I don't think that dancing is going to be one of my talents. You do like to tell stories. Maybe you should try telling a story and dance. Sarah thought for a while, then walked to the center of the room and raised her arms over her head in a graceful curve, like the ballet fifth position. Once upon a time, there was a prince who was also the sun. The sound of angry voices drew Sarah into the hall. "You've been touching my things, haven't you?" "No, miss, I hadn't." "Didn't you clean my rooms?" "Yes, miss." "Then you touched my belongings, didn't you?" "No, please, your pardon, miss, I didn't." Let her be. Sarah found herself quite cross with Lavinia. Lavinia's moods had been mercurial for some time, but to take them out on Becky, who could not defend herself, it was too much. Of course she's been in your rooms to clean them, and she may have moved something to dust it. That's not doing anything wrong, and you've no reason to scold her. No reason! If she moves my books so that I cannot find them, and knocks items off my tables, and puts her filthy fingers on my underclothes. The impertinence of it, as if she had any right to handle a young lady's possessions. Please, miss, I'm sorry. But Lavinia's eyes were on Sarah now. Perhaps you're the reason she can't keep her hands to herself. Don't think I haven't noticed. Noticed what? That girl spending extra time in your rooms? What have you been teaching her in there, hidden away? Telling stories again? Eating sugar, Sarah? No, Lavinia. Open your mouth. Ha ha ha. What would Miss Minchin think of that? I have given Becky extra duties. It wasn't entirely a falsehood, Sarah told herself. She had requested that Becky stay and speak with her, and a request from a student was something like a duty for a servant. If you told Miss Minchin, she would wonder why you were interfering. You already have a personal maid. Is every servant in the school meant to be at your beck and call? There are many things I need done, and it is none of your concern. You think you're very special, don't you? You might have a surprise coming for you yet. Lavinia whirled about, passing through the door to her room and slamming it behind her with much force. "Oh, miss, I didn't mean to cause—" "You didn't cause anything, Becky. Whatever's wrong with Lavinia, it isn't your fault." Tea party, let's do some tutoring, right? Can I do tutoring? Actually, let's read a book. Read a book, tutoring. Let's go. Yay. Yay. We got some stuff. Where is that girl? Where is she? Lavinia, what are you doing? Where is your little pet, Sarah? Look what she's done now. Lavinia held up a pair of shredded stockings. Ruined, completely ruined, and she did it out of spite. Where is that girl? She ought to be whipped. I'll have her. You will not. What did you say? You've been letting Tybalt sleep in your rooms. He got at your stockings, not Becky. That's claw-marked. And you can't blame him either because he's just a cat, and that's what cats do. You stupid, fat-faced fool! Girls! Lavinia's enraged tones had attracted extra attention. Lavinia, I am surprised at you, shrieking and carrying on like a fishwife. What a way to behave! You ought to follow Sarah's example. Sarah is always a model student. You could learn a great deal from her. Lavinia's head jerked as if she'd been struck a blow. The ruined stockings drifted, forgotten, from her numb hands. Yes, Miss Minchin. We have no time. Boo. Do we want to hit Mariette? Or do we want to skip it and save our stuff for later? Because again, like, I think at this point it doesn't matter, but we could see more Mariette, or again, we can sort of hold on to this and try and get more stuff. Because we're nearing the end of Act 1. We are definitely close to Act 1. Which is great. I can't wait to share. I can't wait for the end of Act 1. Let's... Save? Okay, we'll save. As Lottie walked past the classroom, which should be any rights, as little Lottie walked past the classroom, which should be by any rights be empty at such a time, she heard a most curious sound. The sound was faint enough that most ears might have overlooked it, but even in its quietness, it was a sound with which Lottie was intimately familiar. It was the sound of a girl crying. So it was that Lottie, who had never before been known for her sympathy, padded into the classroom, and found, seated on the floor with her arms hugging her knees and her eyes streaming with tears, Lavinia Herbert. "What's the matter?" "Go away." Lottie herself enjoyed being fussed over far too much to imagine that anyone else might truly mean it when she demanded to be left alone. Lottie came closer and laid her plump little hand on Lavinia's shoulder, petting the older girl, as teachers had petted her. There. Don't touch me!" She lashed out, arm and elbow striking the smaller child full force and knocking her away. Ah! Caught off balance, Lottie twisted and fell hard upon her knee, skidding slightly on the floor as she landed. Lavinia's tears had been quiet. Lottie's were anything but. Sarah was, at that time, in another room entirely, curled up in a window seat and enjoying a recently acquired book. Between one word and another, her concentration was disrupted by the sound of distant howling. For all the stories she told of heaven, Sarah would be the first to admit that she herself was not an angel. She felt obligated to leave her book and look after her adopted child, but she was not pleased about it. Thus, when she stomped into the classroom and found Lottie on the ground, nursing her reddened knee, and Lavinia standing over her, Sarah herself sorry about that. And Lavinia standing over her, Sarah herself felt quite snappish and unreasonable. "Stop this minute, you crybaby! Stop this minute!"
I'm not a crybaby. I'm not. You are.
"You nasty little spoiled thing! I should like to slap you!"
Sarah!
Sarah whirled on Lavinia, who appeared to be the root cause of the disruption of her reading, and whose face was now quite dry. "Well, I should like to slap you!" Immediately ashamed, she struggled to restrain herself. "But I don't want to slap you." No, I do want to slap you. I should like to slap you, but I won't, because we are not little gutter children. We are both old enough to know better." "Ah, yes, your Royal Highness. We are princesses, I believe. At least, one of us is." It stung. It stung more bitterly than either of them could have expected, for Sarah to hear her beloved fancy mocked in such a tone. She felt the blood rush up into her face and tingle in her ears, but she stopped herself. A princess did not fly into rages. It's true. Sometimes I do pretend I am a princess. I pretend I am a princess so that I can try and behave like one. Dear me, how grand! I hope when you ascend the throne that you won't forget us. I won't. You think you're the only one who's special? You're wrong. Just you wait, Sarah Crewe. You'll see. Lavinia left the room, her neck stiff, her head high.
Sarah, Mama, she...
Hush, hush, Lottie. It's all right. Never mind. Come and sit in the window seat with me, and I'll whisper a story to you.
Will you tell me about the diamond mines again?
Of course. I need artistry and grace. Grace? Okay. Ooh, let's do practice run, practice dance. Write in diary. Write in diary. Oh, come on. Mademoiselle, there is a letter for you. Oh, another letter from Papa? It does not seem so long at all since his last letter. A longer wait might make me feel quite lonely and neglected, or risk him fading from my thoughts. But this is just right. I wonder if he has explored the diamond caves yet. My dear little missus, this letter did not seem to be written in such boyish high spirits as usual. He was not very well, and was evidently overweighted by the business connected with the diamond mines. You see, little Sarah, your daddy is not a businessman at all, and figures and documents bother him. He does not really understand them, and all this seems so enormous. It gives me a splitting headache even to consider these matters. Perhaps I am the one who should be away at school again, learning how to manage things. And if I was not feverish, I should not be awake through one half of each night, tossing about, and spending the other half in troublesome dreams. If my little missus were here, I dare say she would give me some solemn, good advice, and put my mind at ease. What wouldn't I give to have your little arms round my neck this minute? God grant that these matters be soon resolved, and grant me leave to return to England for a visit. A visit? Oh, Mariette, my papa may be coming for a visit. Are you sure, mademoiselle? It is a long way to travel. I do not wish you to be disappointed. Well, he doesn't promise that he can, but he does say that he would like to. She read a little further along. He's also asking about what I want for my birthday. Wouldn't it be lovely if my papa were here for my birthday? Oui, ma jeunesse que compite pas trop. I know. I mustn't fasten my hopes on it, but it is a beautiful thing to believe. She looked down at the letter and smiled. Papa is asking if a doll would be an acceptable present. I told him I didn't want a lot of dolls, but he says a special doll might be a companion for Emily while I'm busy with classes. That is a pretty thought. Yes, she must be a very special doll. You see, I'm getting very old, and by the time of my next birthday, I do not think I should be given dolls anymore. This will be my last doll. There's something solemn about that, don't you think? Of course, mademoiselle. If I could write poetry, I am sure a poem about a last doll would be very nice. But I cannot write poetry. I have tried, and it made me laugh. It did not sound like Watts or Coleridge or Shakespeare at all. Perhaps when you are completely too old for dolls, you will have more of a talent for poetry in exchange. Do you think it could work like that way? I never know how I will change, even though I am different every day. Sarah set the letter aside and knelt to address Emily. I should respect the last doll very much, but nothing could ever take your place. I hope you do not become jealous of each other and can be very good friends. I am sure they will. We cannot, so I guess we'll skip. Stay together now, girls. Keep in line. It was Sunday, and the girls in Miss Minchin's Select Seminary walked together on their way back from services. The air was warm, and the foggy veil of London thin enough for sunlight to pass through. It seemed a day designed to inspire rest and relaxation. In that indolent atmosphere, only Sarah heard the fruitless cough of the bigger child. She could not have said whether it was the same child as before, nor did she take the time to consider the likelihood of such. She moved without thinking, her coin purse in hand. Here is a sixpence. Go and buy yourself some fruit and something to drink. After pouncing on her bounty, Sarah returned to the formation of schoolgirls, fully expected to be scolded by Miss Minchin. Such was not to be. Did you all see that, girls? Sarah has given you a very fine example of Christian generosity and kindness. We all know the importance of these virtues, but we often find it difficult to put them into practice in our daily lives. That's our Sarah. Yes, a marvelous little princess. How strange. Have I changed so much in the months that I have been here? Or has Miss Minchin? Or could it be that we are both exactly as we always were, and something else has changed instead? Oh, Sarah. I just love how in the last one she was like, you shouldn't talk to beggar children. You might be tainted. And now she's like, oh, look at Sarah being a kind young lady. The Christian values to give money when to such unfortunate young. I just want to smack her. Oh my god, Miss Minchin is a time. I need a lot more grace. Okay, how am I gonna get more grace? Is that? That's not grace. I need grace. I might save real quick so I can try and get the best option. Give me that grace. Give me. Nope. 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 I'm gonna quickly go back. I don't usually do this, but I really wanted to go back. That's why I saved right here, so that I could try and get a better result. There we go. Ugh. Eh. I think that'll be okay. I think we have enough now to talk to... Or was it 9 that we needed from... Was it 9? Let's try and get... I wanna be sure. Let's try and get 9 really quick. Okay, nope. Nope. That was even worse than before. Give me all the grace. No. There we go. Every time I'm like, yes, we got some grace. It's not enough. Thank you for being patient with me. Let's see if we need enough grace. Maybe we have enough. Thank you for having me to tea, Sarah. You know you are always welcome. Yes, but I still appreciate it. I don't think I should stop thanking you when you do nice things just because you've done them before, and I've thanked you before. You are very sweet. Sarah looked down at her tea. The sugar had already completely dissolved into the hot water. Its sweetness was not something that could be seen. Ermengarde, do you know why Miss Minchin treats me differently? She does. I feel that she praises me every day, whether it's for being quick to finish my lessons, or something so small as having an amiable smile. But you have a lovely smile, and you are very clever at your books, more than anyone. Everything she says is true. I must believe that if you say that it is so, but I don't feel that I am any more clever and amiable than I was some months ago, and I do not think she liked me so much then. Maybe it took Miss Minchin a while to realize just how wonderful you are. Oh, these child's naivety. Yeah. It was definitely took a while. Definitely took a little, shall we say, incentive to show Miss Minchin what a well-formed girl our young Sarah Crewe is. A little diamond incentive, if you will. Some people aren't as quick at understanding things as you. Sarah sighed to herself and took a sip of her tea. A lot of nice accidents have happened to me. It just happened that I always liked lessons and books and could remember things when I learned them. It just happened that I was born with a father who was beautiful and nice and clever and could give me everything I liked. Perhaps I have not really a good temper at all. If you have everything you want and everyone is kind to you, how can you help but be good-tempered? I don't know how I shall ever find out whether I am really a nice child or a horrid one. Perhaps I'm a hideous child, and no one will ever know, just because I have never had any trials. Lavinia has no trials, and she is horrid enough. It's very interesting to have a very rich... It's very interesting to have a very rich character, but she's very nice. I feel like I don't see that a lot in stories. Like, I feel like people try and present it like, oh no, the rich are so nice and so... But, like, in media, I see a lot more, like, the bitchy rich character, like Pacifica, Luz in the beginning. Like, characters who have a lot of money or very high in status tend to be more like a Lavinia, very pompous, very rude, very uncaring. And so I found it very interesting that, like, Sarah, like, she's rich, but she's very kind and very thoughtful, and she does have this interesting point. Like, obviously now there's things people can do to, like, if she wanted, she could give money and do charity, which it seems like she is a very charitable person despite having money. She tries to help people even when she doesn't, even when she has the money. So I think she doesn't quite know about the world yet, but I feel like if she grew up, she would be a very charitable and kind person. It's just very interesting to see somebody who has a very good point. She's like, I didn't choose this life. I could be, who knows, like, what if I wasn't rich? What if I was poor? Would I still be the nice girl that I am? Like, maybe I'm only nice because I'm rich. And it's just such an interesting, like, I don't know, it's just so interesting to see that side, which I don't think a lot of people tap into, and it's one of my favorite things in the books, is just this, like, we have a rich character, but she's very nice, and she's very thoughtful, and she's very strong, but in, like, this sort of kind and compassionate way. And, like, I'm jealous. I wish I had her money. I'm definitely nowhere near close. I'm more like Becky. Maybe not Becky. I have a place, but it's still that feeling of, like, man, I wish I could feel, I wish I didn't struggle with money. I wish I didn't feel nervous about income and where I am in life. And with Sarah, she doesn't have to worry about that. She's going to be taken care of for the rest of her life. And when they find the diamond mine, she's going to be even richer than before. So, but it's just very interesting that she has this, like, sort of ideology. And she's very compassionate for who she is. Because Ermengarde's right. She could have been like Lavinia. Lavinia has no struggles, and she treats everyone like dirt. And Sarah cares about people and thinks about other people other than herself. Sarah rubbed the end of her little nose reflectively as she thought the matter over. Well, perhaps that is because Lavinia is growing. Aren't we all growing? Lavinia is one of the eldest. I have heard it said that that age makes girls especially disagreeable. Though I don't know why. I hope that I don't have to become angry all the time only because of growing older. Oh, I'm certain that you won't. You are a kind friend. Did I make it? No! Fuck it, I have to go back real quick. I'm gonna get that grace real quick, and then I'm just gonna kind of skip through it if that's okay. Give me... I think I made it. Oh, I can... Alright, we made it. We made it, guys. Totally without cheating. First try. Didn't have to do it again. Alright. Jessie. Jessie caught up with Sarah in the hallway and followed along behind... Jessie caught up with Sarah in the hallway and followed along behind at her elbow. You're looking very pretty today, Sarah. Do I look any different than usual? Maybe that's just Jessie's way of saying hello. Thank you. Of course, it's easy for you to be pretty, because you have so many nice things, and you have your own maid to help dress and style you, and... I wanted to ask you a favor. What is it? You're the only girl I know here with your very own personal lady's maid. Lavi says her parents say she's too young. Don't tell her I told you that. It doesn't mean that she's jealous of you. I hadn't thought about Mariette as something to be jealous of. So, as it was, I was wondering if I could borrow her? Jessie, she is a person. You can't just ask things of that. She is not an object to borrow. She is a person. And that's another example. Like, Jessie's spoiled too. But, like, she's a lot nicer than, like, Lavinia is. But she's a lot more, like, ignorant. Like, she does have more of that, like, I'm popular and I'm pretty and I have standards, so I don't have to think too hard about things that upset me. But she doesn't seem, like, ill-willed. She just seems more ignorant than Lavinia does. So, as if, Mariette, why? So that she could show me some new things to do with my hair. She's French, isn't she? She might have even been to Paris, and Paris is the very height of fashion. She might have all kinds of tricks, paints, embellishments, ways to curl hair without damage. I have to know. I've never seen her so passionate. Well, Marietta is not a thing that you can borrow, but I don't mind if you visit her. And if you ask her nicely, I'm sure she will talk to you about Paris fashions. She does know a great deal more about hair and clothing than I do. But I think your hair looks perfectly nice as it is. It's not perfect. It's never perfect. Yeah, I guess that's true. Like, a maid in that time is sort of just like, kind of, they do what they're supposed to. Their job is to sort of clean but still, one, she's not Jessie's maid, and the way she's... Oh, are you talking about? Yeah. Jessie pulled a section of her long red hair over her shoulder and glared at it. Especially this color. It's unlucky. It's sinful, lustful. Witches and criminals and fallen women have red hair. Your hair can't make you sinful. Well, of course it's not true, but it's what other people think that matters. And there's nothing I can do about it. Diet doesn't help. I could try to stain it black, but then it might be damaged or mark my clothing, and I would be humiliated. She cut herself off, forcing her features back into the shape of a smile. I must not damage my hair, even if it is too long and heavy for the best dancing. It is my responsibility. You say that you must, but I don't see why that would be so. The length of my hair is my one unique beauty, you see. It's something that other girls can't copy, not unless they spend years working at it, like I have. Yeah. The thing about red hair, especially in this time, like, red hair was that sort of sinful thing. I love red hair. I think red hair is beautiful. It's one of my favorite colors, but it's so interesting to think about how back in that day it was just, you were seen as like a tarty woman if you had red hair, that you were going to, like, be a home wrecker or cause, problems, when it's the color of your hair and it's just kind of what you're born with. Same as, like, again, you can't
you can't, your personality doesn't depend necessarily on when you were born or what you look like. It kind of depends on what you learn as you grow. Yeah. Well, they are in a high established school, so I guess for them it's very much that these are things they have to think about as they get older. These are things that are expected of them as they get older, and I don't want to go into too many spoilers, but Jessie's has a very interesting route if we do end up doing hers, which I'd be more than happy to eventually do hers, just not right now. But unless people want it, unless at the end of this and we get to the second part, she's available, and you guys decide, hey, I'd rather see Jessie's, because who knows? This still could be anyone's game. Well, not Lottie's, and not Mariette's, and definitely not Lavinia's, but it could still be anybody's game.
The length of my hair is my own unique beauty, you see. It's something that other girls can't copy, not unless they spend years working at it, like I have. It is my task to make it myself as beautiful and accomplished as possible, so that I can catch the eye of a gentleman. It's different for girls like you and Lavi. You are your father's only heir. You will be wealthy, and I will be pretty. Is that the only thing she wants to be? Well, come and visit, and I will try to help you talk to Mariette. Thank you. You're so sweet. Now, Lottie, hold on to my hands. Will you pick me up? Not like that. Your wrists are not strong enough. Hold my hands like so. Now, pick one foot up off the ground and stretch it out behind you. I feel all wobbly. That's why I'm holding on to you. Press on my hands and try not to lean forward as you stretch. This feels strange. Sarah came into the room to find Jessie and Lottie engaged in some manner of dance practice. Oh, Lottie, I can see your petticoats. Sarah, Mama! She let go of Jessie and rushed over to Sarah to demand a hug. Will you play with us? Play? I thought you were dancing. We weren't, exactly. I had an idea and wanted to see if she could do it. But I would be happy to dance with you, Sarah, if you would like it. Where's Lavinia? I would have expected her to be with you. Lavinia has not been herself lately. She sighed, twisting up her beautiful long hair and then letting it fall again. Oh, Sarah, it's been so difficult. I've always admired Lavinia so very much, but now... Admired? Quite unexpectedly, Lavinia swept into the room. Jessie's eyes went wide, her hands fighting uselessly to cover her mouth. Yes, you admired me, didn't you? Only now there's a little diamond girl for you to admire, isn't there? You're nothing but a useless sycophant, Jessie Aboot. Yes, I know what that word means. I know a lot of things that nobody else does. Not even your precious Princess Sarah. With a haughty tilt of her chin, she strode away. Jessie's eyes darted frantically back and forth, her cheeks taking on a lilac hue. Then, without a word, she crumpled the fabric in her skirt in her hands and hurried after Lavinia. Sarah, Mama, what's a sycophant? A sycophant is, someone who flatters an important person that they don't really like. Why? I don't know. Well, okay. Rude. I think, well, we have everyone except knowledge, artistry, and belief, so we might as well, or grace. We should probably just keep doing that. Let me actually see if I can... Okay, that seems done. I'm gonna save again just so I can have some stuff built up. I'm gonna try it a bit to get it a bit better. There we go. That looks a little more. My dear Sarah, how good it is to see you today. Thank you. As you know, your birthday will be upon us in only 2 short weeks. Yes, I am planning a grand celebration for you. We will decorate the entire schoolroom and have a little party with activities for all the students. Then you will open your gifts with great ceremony, and after they have been seen and admired, you will proceed to a glittering feast, where I will arrange some unusual treats. Is there anything particular that you would like for your special day, Sarah? Will my papa be there? What was that? Oh, I only hoped. He had written me that he would like to be present for my birthday, and I hoped that you might have had word. I'm sorry. If Captain Crewe has made such plans, he has not informed me. I was told only to have your gifts made ready for you. Oh. Now, do not lose hope, my dear. Message travels so slowly when the ocean is involved. It is always possible that ships are in motion even as we speak. However, even if your father is unable to attend the festivities, I hope you will have a simply marvelous time, and write to him all about it. Yes, Miss Minchin, thank you. Well, my dear, if you have no other special requests, then you may wish to return to your friends. There is another gentleman I need to speak with. Thank you. Good day. Upon leaving Miss Minchin's office, Sarah briefly crossed the path of a sharp-featured, dry little gentleman who wore a neatly tailored suit and eyeglasses. Good day. He nodded at her, quite as if he already knew her name, and saw no need for the two of them to be introduced once again. Good day. Something about his manner seemed mildly unsettling to Sarah, but as he soon vanished into Miss Minchin's office, never to be seen again, she quite forgot all about him. Out of sight, Miss Minchin greeted her visitor. Ah, Mr. Barrow, here are the next set of bills for Miss Crewe's celebrations. I have it on authority that the Parisian doll is nearly complete and will be delivered next week. The strange gentleman took the papers she handed him and regarded them with a sniff. You do not think this is a trifle extravagant for such a young girl's birthday? Captain Crewe expected the very best for his daughter. I don't see how it is your place to judge. He ordered that your firm would pay all expenses, did he not? Yes, yes. You are very fond of the girl, then? She is my most important pupil. I see. Very well, I shall take these and add them to the receipts for disbursement when the next payment arrives. Good day to you, Miss Minchin. We have enough. Will we have enough for... We'll just need 3 sympathy. That's all our sympathy. And that's our patience. We'll have enough for belief, so we just need 3 sympathy to get Becky for tomorrow. So I think we'll be good. Let's do it. When Sarah went looking for Jessie, she found her in her bedroom, slowly running a brush through the length of her hair. Sarah, hello. Please come in if you don't mind that I'm busy. I don't wish to interrupt you. It's fine to have someone to talk to. This takes a while. Sarah walked into the room and took a seat on Jessie's bed. I have to go through it all a few times before I can prepare for the night, first with my fingers to find any tangles and work them out carefully, next with the first brush to get it all straight and smooth, and then with the second brush to work through any oil or powder that it needs. And then I have to braid it all up before I can sleep so that I don't roll on it in the night. That does sound like a lot of work. It would be much easier for her if she had a lady's maid to help, but I cannot ask Mariette to do so much for another girl as well as looking after me. Labby won't come and sit with me while I'm brushing it out because she says it's too boring for words. She is my best friend and I love her dearly, but she can be so exasperating. She has no appreciation for how much easier things are for her. She doesn't have to be married off just so her family can receive a bride price. There are bride prices in England? No, not normally, but... She turned away, letting the fall of her hair veil her face from Sarah's eyes. A nice girl, a good girl, from a good family, ought to have a dowry to help her set up a new household when she marries. And if she's got a solid fortune settled on her, she can make sure there's enough for the household and for her, and to keep her husband sweet. But if you're pretty enough, then a gentleman who has money of his own might be willing to follow his heart and wed you without a dowry. And if you're even prettier than that, then he might be willing to give your family some gifts in exchange for the right to your hand. That's what my family is hoping for. They want to settle me in a good position, so that I'll be taken care of course, but they want more than that.
And you don't? For a moment, Jessie said nothing. There was only the slow, soothing sound of bristles sliding through her hair. When at last she spoke again, her voice was light.
Imagine it. The tragic, impoverished heroine, torn between the suit of a man who is rich but cold, and her secret affair with her true love. The novelists love a story like that. Well, I don't have a rich suitor or a true love. I haven't even reached the ballroom yet. She swung her hair around to begin brushing the other side. But when I get there, I'm going to be dazzling.
Sarah was playing hostess to Jessie at a tea party in her room, but upon this occasion, Jessie's interest seemed more drawn to Sarah's French maid.
Truly, the corset is no longer at the height of fashion. Not in Paris, mademoiselle. It is quite good in province. In London, the curved back and large bosoms still dominate, but Paris must always be at the front of things, you see. Isn't it a lovely idea, Sarah, to be free to move and breathe, to have a small chest, and to still be beautiful? If it is beautiful in Paris, then it must be beautiful elsewhere, even if people don't see it that way. The fashion of Paris are emulated all around the world, but it does take time.
Marie Antoinette devised a fashion of shepherd dresses, didn't she?
It was not quite so, mademoiselle. As I have heard, the queen grew tired of the stiff brodequins and jewels of court dress, and wished something more light and simple. She designed gowns of soft, thin muslin, with much gathering and ruffle, gowns that could be both beautiful and comfortable. That design, in its own way, may have led to many of the dresses young ladies such as yourselves wear now. Paris, before all. I thought that the queen wasn't very popular in France anymore. There are many who may hate the royalty of the past and all that they represent, and others who still hope that the Sun King will come again. Perhaps the crown will be restored one day. I do not know. It is not for my hands to decide. As for Marie Antoinette, some mock her memory, but I have always had my own sympathy. I believe I was named in her honor. Oh, how charming! As conversation turned from Marie Antoinette to the Celtic origins of Jessie's own name, Sarah's mind wandered into recollections of a book she had read recently. It was not entirely unrelated, for it had been a book about the French Revolution, specifically the prisoners of the Bastille, men who had spent so many years in dungeons, but then when they were dragged out by their rescuers, their long gray hair and beards covered their faces. After so many years trapped underground, they had forgotten that the outside world existed at all, and to them, walking into freedom was not so much walking from a dream as entering into one. To doubt the sun, to forget that there was such a thing as stars, those poor souls. And yet, over time, they must have learned to believe in their new world. England was very strange to me after living in India, but now it seems so real, or even more so than my memories. Sarah? Oh, please excuse me, my thoughts began to run away on their own. A pity that they can't carry us with them. Okay, so I need a lot of sympathy, I need artistry, patience, and grace. I think we're nearing the end. Knowledge, artistry, patience. The sympathy is gonna be... Let's do tea party, tea party, tea party. Ooh, that's actually a really good idea. Ooh, I need more sympathy. Miss, oh! Sarah was startled when Becky caught her arm in the hallway one day. The scullery maid was usually too timid to be so assisted. If Sarah did not call out to her, Becky would more often pass by unnoticed. What is it, Becky? Celtic? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Celtic. Like, that's right. I don't know why I said Celtic. I like Celtic music a lot. It's one of my favorites.
Oh, miss, I heard. Is it your birthday soon, miss?
Yes, it's next week.
That's what I thought I heard, miss, but I wasn't sure.
When is your birthday, Becky?
Don't know, miss. Never had one.
But you must have a birthday. Everyone does. You were born.
I don't rightly remember that part, miss.
But if you don't know when you were born, how old are you?
Not so sure of that either, miss. The workhouse reckoned I were past 14 and old enough for service.
She doesn't look over 14. Mariette said that she thought Becky was older than she appeared. Poor Becky, to have never had a birthday. Well then, if you have no birthday of your own, you shall share in mine.
Miss?
Miss Minchin asked if there was anything I wanted for my party. I wanted my papa to be there, but she can't fix that for me. But she can let you come to my party, and I'm sure she will, if I ask her to.
Oh, miss, are you sure?
Of course I'm sure. Every little girl deserves birthday parties. Maybe you're older or maybe you're not, but you're still a little girl. Becky made a small noise, like a laugh half swallowed and tucked away.
Oh, I've got to scrape her now, miss, but I hope you're right.
Oh no, I don't have enough. Hang on, I don't have enough for either. Hang on. We're gonna try and get one of them. There might just be I might just have to go on. Okay. Okay, we're just gonna go ahead with Becky, because I going through the process, I don't think we can actually get Jessie at this point. So we'll just do Becky. Sorry that took so long. Thank you for being patient with me. When Sarah went into her sitting room in the afternoon, she found on the table a small, dumpy package tied up in a piece of brown paper. A birthday present! And I think I know whom it came from. She unwrapped the paper quite tenderly. Inside there was a square pincushion, made out of not quite clean red flannel. Black pins had been stuck carefully into the surface to form the words, "Many happy returns." The sight, and the thought of the pains Becky must have taken to put it all together, gave Sarah a warm feeling in her heart. I like it so much that it makes me feel sorrowful. But the next moment she was mystified. On the underside of the pincushion was secured a card, bearing in neat letters the name Miss Maria Minchin. Sarah turned the card over in her hands in case some message were written on the other side, but there was nothing. Miss Minchin? How can it be? And just at that very moment she heard the door being cautiously pushed open. Becky peeped through around the door, then grinned and shuffled forward, pulling at her fingers.
Do you like it, Miss Sarah? Do you? Like it? You darling, you made this all yourself.
Becky gave a hysterical but joyful sniff, and her eyes looked quite moist with delight.
Can't do facts and stitching like Mariette, and it ain't nothing but flannel, and the flannel ain't new, but I wanted to get you something, so I worked on it at nights. I knew you could pretend it was satin with diamonds, pins in it. I tried to when I was making it. Oh yes, a blue satin cushion and pink diamonds, the rarest and most precious of all. Something Becky made with her own hands in her spare time when she has so little is already more precious than diamonds. But why does it have Miss Minchin's card on it? It weren't wrong of me to pick it up out of the dustbin, was it? Miss Minchin had thrown it away. I hadn't got a card of my own, and I knew it wouldn't be a proper present if I didn't pin a card on it, so I pinned Miss Minchin's.
Sarah flew at her and hugged her. She could not have told herself or anyone else why there was a lump in her throat.
Oh, Becky, I love you, Becky. I do. Oh, miss, thank you, miss, kindly, but it ain't good enough for that. The flannel weren't new.
Sarah laughed into Becky's neck, a queer little laugh that sounded almost as much like tears as it did like joy.
You are far too sweet.
She pulled back, looking into Becky's dear face. What happened to Ermengarde? We leave her alone for like a couple minutes and you're already on to another girl? Sarah! But no, actually, I find this scene to
to be extremely sweet. Becky's really nice too. I really like Becky. I wish I were the fairy godmother who can bring you a magical dress and turn you into the princess you deserve to be. Oh shit. Oh no. Oh, there we go.
Me? Of course, you are the kind and ill-treated heroine who works hard every day without any thanks. In any proper story, you ought to turn out to be the lost daughter of a king. I don't think my mom's ever seen a king, miss. It doesn't have to be that way. A fairy tale baby might be sent down the river on a tiny boat to safety, or discovered curled up inside a walnut shell. Don't think I'd ever fit in a walnut shell either. Sarah giggled. Well, however you were born or wherever you came from, I'm very glad that you're here now, with me. A new week. Mademoiselle, you must hold still so that I can see the new dress on you correctly. I'm sorry, Mariette. I heard a horse's hooves and the sound of wheels, and then they slowed, and I thought perhaps it was a carriage come to call. A carriage with my papa. Ooh, look at her new dress. Oh, she looks so pretty. She looks like a magical girl. Mademoiselle, hanging your head will not make your papa come any faster, nor will it help me adjust your dress for the party. Is it wrong to keep hoping, Mariette? I know he never sent word that he could come, but he never sent a letter to say that he absolutely couldn't either. I do not think that I can answer that, mademoiselle. Hope is something very personal. Then, I think I will. It will be sad if my birthday comes and my papa is not here, but if I give up hope, then I would be sad now. I think it will be easier to be a little sad then, while I am having a nice party with my friends, than to be sad now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make it more difficult for you to finish my dress. Sarah raised her head and spun out her arms like a little doll. If my papa is to see this, then it must be lovely, and if my papa will not be there, then it should be just as nice to keep up our spirits. Really, I hope her papa can make it. What do you think? Do you guys think her papa will be able to make it? Or do you think she'll have to go a birthday without him? If my papa is to see this, then it must be lovely. If my papa will not be there, then it should be just as nice to keep up our spirits. Isn't that right, Emily? Mariette laughed to herself, but would not say why. Perfect. It was, at last, the day of Sarah's birthday party. There had been no further word from her papa, but at this moment Sarah was too carried away with anticipation to feel disappointment. Oh, Miss Minchin, may I not go into the classroom yet? Everyone is already there waiting. Not until the preparations are complete, my dear. This is not an ordinary occasion. I do not desire that it should be treated as one. And so she was required to wait in the hall, breathless and fidgeting, until Cook emerged from the classroom. Everything's ready, Mum. Very well. Take my hand, Sarah, and let us enter. Sarah entered the holly-hung classroom as the head of a sort of procession. First there was Miss Minchin in a grand silk dress, and Sarah herself guided by her hand. A manservant followed, carrying the box containing the last doll. Cook carried a second box, and Becky brought up the rear, carrying a third box and wearing a clean apron and a new cap. All the students in their seats stared at this little parade, the older girls touching each other's elbows and nodding, the youngest squirming with excitement. Faced with so many eyes, Sarah felt herself unaccountably shy. Not since her first introduction at Miss Minchin's Select Seminary had she been quite so much the center of all attention. Silence, young ladies. The room itself was not quite transformed, but certainly made far more festive. The desks had been pushed away, and the long form benches covered over with red cloth. A large table had been set in pride of place, its surface scattered with flower petals. It was here that Miss Minchin directed her entourage. James, put that box upon the table and remove the lid. Emma, put yours upon a chair. Becky had quite forgotten herself in the excitement, and was exchanging grins with Lottie when that disapproving voice startled her into dropping her box. Yes,
She bobbed a shaky little curtsy of apology, and with the box still in her arms, the positioning was quite awkward. Both tittered at once, and looked at each other in startlement for falling so easily into their last report. "It is not your place to look at the young ladies. You forget yourself. Put your box down." "Yes'm. You may leave us." She waved her hand, and the servants began to walk away. "If you please, Miss Minchin, mayn't Becky stay?" "Becky?" "I want her because I know she would like to see the presents. She is a little girl, too, you know." Miss Minchin was scandalized. She glanced from one figure to the other. "My dear Sarah, Becky is the scullery maid. Scullery maids are not little girls. But Becky is, and I know she would enjoy herself. Please let her stay, because it is my birthday." Miss Minchin took a slow breath and replied with such dignity, "As you ask it as a birthday favor, she may stay. I am so sorry, guys. I have to be back real soon. Give me 1 second. I wanted to wait until I was done because we're right near the end of the first part, but my stomach is gurgling, so I am unfortunately going to have to be right back. Thank you so much for your patience. See you soon." Yeah, but also, sorry, I'm back, by the way. Thank you guys so much for being patient. I wanted to wait till the end of the stream because we're so close to the end of the stream, but my stomach just started hurting, and I was like, I need to go use the restroom real quick. But at the same time, I feel like it's a good move because Miss Minchin can't say no in front of everyone, kind of thing, like, oh, well, shit, I can't do that when she's already in front of everyone asking for this thing. Where, like, she could say, like, "Oh, yes, Sarah," and then later tell Becky, or put Becky on a job so Becky couldn't come to the party. Or, like, have Becky out of the house on that day so she couldn't come to join the party. So, yeah, I'm gonna finish this, and then I'm gonna take like a break, as in I'm gonna end my stream because I want to eat, and then I might be back later tonight, but playing a different game because I need to give my voice a rest. It's definitely hurting a lot, but I want to finish this because we're so close. "As you ask it as a birthday favor, she may stay. Rebecca, thank Miss Sarah for her great kindness." Becky had been basking in the corner, twisting the hem of her aprons in delighted suspense. She came forward, bobbing curtsies, but out of Miss Minchin's sight she passed a friendly wink to Sarah. "Oh, if you please, miss, I'm that grateful, miss. I did want to see the doll, miss, that I did. Thank you, miss, and thank you, ma'am, for the liberty. Go and stand there, not too near the young ladies." Becky went to her place, grinning. She did not even mind when Miss Minchin cleared her throat ominously and spoke again. "Now, young ladies, I have a few words to say to you. She is going to make a speech. I wish it was over. You are aware, young ladies, that today is dear Sarah's birthday. Dear Sarah. Sarah's birthdays are rather different from other little girls' birthdays. She has money, which makes her better than you. When she is older, she will be heiress to a large fortune, which will be her duty to spend in a meritorious manner." Oh my gosh, she's just straight out saying, like, she has money, she's gonna be rich, you're not. She is better. Like, I hate this woman so much. The diamond mines. When her dear papa, Captain Crewe, brought her from India and gave her into my care, he said to me in a jesting way, "I am afraid she will be very rich, Miss Minchin." My reply was, "Her education at my seminary, Captain Crewe, shall be such as will adorn the largest fortune." I wish she would stop. Saying these things makes me feel hot all over, and everyone is staring. Sarah has become my most accomplished pupil. Her French and her dancing are a credit to the seminary. Her manners, which have caused you to call her Princess Sarah, are perfect. Her amiability she exhibits by giving you this
this afternoon's party. I hope you appreciate her generosity. I wish you to express your appreciation of it by saying aloud all together, 'Thank you, Sarah.'" The entire schoolroom rose to its feet and chorused Miss Minchin's words. Lottie even jumped up and down. Sarah looked rather shy for a moment, then made a very nice curtsy. "Thank you for coming to my party." "Very pretty indeed, Sarah. That is what a real princess does when the populace applauds her." "Lavinia, the sound you just made was extremely like a snort. If you are jealous of your fellow pupil, I beg you express your feelings in some more ladylike manner. Now I will leave you to enjoy yourselves." The instant she had swept out of the room, the web-like aura that had held the girls down dissipated, and they rushed from their seats in a babble of excitement. It was the boxes that drew the most attention. Sarah was bent over one. "There are books, I know." "Does your papa send you books for a birthday present? Why, he's as bad as mine." "I like them."
"Books aren't exciting. I want to see the doll."
Yay! Hi, Mabel. Welcome in. Whose hair looks like Bayonetta? Are you talking about the teacher? Oh yeah, I think you're talking about Miss Minchin because of the way that the teacher's hair is like all up.
"Books aren't exciting. I want to see the doll."
For everyone present, through whispered rumors had come to know that a quite magnificent doll was due to appear. Even so, when Sarah finally produced the last doll from her box, a number of the girls were struck speechless. It did not seem possible that she could be a doll. She looked only a bit smaller than the youngest student, as if a beautiful child had lain asleep in that box.
"She's dressed for the theater. Look, her cloak is lined with ermine. Oh, she has an opera glass in her hand. A blue and gold one."
Sarah drew out the doll's trunk and the little golden key which unlocked it. Inside were tray after tray of delightful things. There were lace collars and silk stockings and handkerchiefs. There was a jewel case containing a necklace and a tiara which looked quite as if they were made of real diamonds. Sarah picked up a black velvet hat to perch on the last doll's curls. Suppose she understands human talk and feels proud of being admired. "You were always supposing things." Her air was very superior, and yet the words were less vicious than Lavinia's outbursts in the past week had been. Perhaps the aura of celebration had brought even Lavinia some happiness. "There is nothing so nice as supposing. It's almost like being a fairy. If you suppose anything hard enough, it seems as if it were real." At that moment the door opened. "Ladies." Cook drew herself up as if attempting to speak in Miss Minchin's dry tones, but the effect did not quite become her. "Miss Minchin has a meeting, so she said you should all have your refreshments now."
"Refreshments!"
Becky, who had seen the preparations ahead of time, could not help blurting out,
"Tell 'em what you got."
Cook shook a heavy hand in Becky's direction, and the scullery girl closed her mouth and ducked away. "Special treats from overseas, all the way from America. It's some kind of beans and spiced tomato sauce, and they put it in cans." "How quaint." In her office, Miss Minchin was meeting with a familiar visitor. "Good day, Mr. Barrow. Have you come to see the goods? I can assure you the doll is just as expected. £100, all expensive material, and made at a Parisian boutiste. He spent money lavishly enough, that young man. Captain Crewe is a man of fortune. The diamond mines alone. Diamond mines! There are no such things. Never were." Miss Minchin stood up from her chair in confusion. What? What do you mean?" "At any rate, it would have been much better if there never were any." "Any diamond mines? I don't understand." "Diamond mines spell ruin oftener than they spell wealth.
when a man is in the hands of a very dear friend and is not a businessman himself, he had better steer clear of the dear friend's diamond mines, or gold mines, or any other kind of mines dear friends want his money to put into. The late Captain Crewe.
The late Captain Crewe? You don't come to tell me that Captain Crewe is...
He's dead, ma'am. Died of jungle fever and business troubles combined. The jungle fever might not have killed him if he had not been driven mad by the business troubles, and the troubles might not put an end to him if the fever had not assisted. Captain Crewe is dead.
Miss Minchin dropped into her chair again. What were his business troubles?
Diamond mines and dear friends, and ruin.
Ruin?
That young man had too much money and spent too freely. The dear friend was mad on the subject of the diamond mine. He put all his money into it. Then the dear friend ran away. Captain Crewe was already stricken with fever when the news came. The shock was too much for him. He died delirious, raving about his little girl, and left her not a penny.
He left nothing! Do you mean to tell me that the child is a beggar? That she is left on my hands a little pauper instead of an heiress?
She is certainly left a beggar, and she is certainly left on your hands, ma'am, as she hasn't a relation in the world that we know of.
She's sitting in my rooms at this very moment, dressed in silk gauze and lace petticoats, giving a party at my expense.
She's certainly giving it at your expense, madame, if she's given it.
I was always so sure of his payments that I went to all sorts of ridiculous expenses for the child. Her maid, her carriage. I paid the bills for that ridiculous doll and a ridiculous fantastic wardrobe. I sent you the receipts.
Barrow and Skipworth are not responsible for everything. There never was a cleaner sweep made of a man's fortune. Captain Crewe died without paying our last bill, and it was a big one. Now Miss Minchin understood, and never had she received such a blow in her life. She felt as if she had been outraged and robbed, and that Captain Crewe and Sarah and Mr. Barrow were equally to blame. Her show pupil, her prize patron, her income had all been snatched away. Instead, she was burdened with an extravagantly brought-up child, one who had cost her a great deal, and might continue to cost her even more.
But what am I to do? What am I to do?
There isn't anything to do. Captain Crewe is dead. The child is left a pauper. Nobody is responsible for her but you.
I'm not responsible for her, and I refuse to be made responsible. If you think she is to be foisted off on me, you are greatly mistaken. I have been robbed and cheated. I will turn her into the street.
Mr. Barrow turned and moved toward the door, showing no concern. I wouldn't do that, madam. It wouldn't look well. Reflects poorly on the establishment. Pupil bundled out penniless and without friends. Other parents might object. You and I are people of business, madam. We can be sensible about these matters. Better to keep her and make use of her. She's a clever child, I believe. You can get a good deal out of her as she grows older.
I will get a good deal out of her before she grows older.
I am sure you will, madam. I am sure you will. He gave a little sinister smile and departed. For moments, Maria Minchin was incapable of doing anything but standing and staring at the closed door. During the past months, the story of the diamond mines had suggested all sorts of possibilities to her. Even proprietors of seminaries might make fortune in stocks with the aid of owners of mines. And now, instead of looking forward to gains, she was left to look back upon losses. Such money as she herself had advanced was lost and could not be regained. Instead of a jewel of a pupil, she had only a friendless, beggared little girl. The Princess Sarah, indeed. This child has been pampered as if she were a queen. She did not realize at first that she had spoken aloud, and then scowled at her own loss of control. What was lost could not be recovered, but she would see to it that she lost nothing more.
You wanted to see me, Miss Minchin? The older woman ignored Sarah's presence completely, turning her gaze to the young French woman who served as Sarah's maid. Mariette, has this girl a black frock in her sumptuous wardrobe? A black frock, madam? She has frocks of every other color. Has she a black one? Mariette's face stiffened as the awful suspicion grew. Yes, but it is too short for her. She has only the old black velvet, and she has outgrown it. Miss Minchin, what has happened? You do not speak until you are spoken to. Bring the black dress out at once. Whether it is too short or not, she is done with finery. Yes, madame. Sarah did not speak. She could not. Her entire body was frozen in place. Her eyes seemed to get bigger and bigger, and she went quite pale. Captain Crewe is dead. He has died without a penny. This spoiled, pampered, fanciful child is left a pauper on my hands. You, Sarah, take off that preposterous gauze, change into the black dress, and meet me in my office. Also, wow, what a way to reveal that her father passed away. Like, that is the most heartless, like she's already a terrible person, but this is just, like, cruel, like, not even any kind of, like, by the way, your father might have passed. Like, no, it's just like, yeah, so he's dead, and you suck, so I'm gonna make use of you. And you, Mariette, you were employed on the authority of Captain Crewe, and your wages were his responsibility, not mine. As he has left us with nothing, there is nothing left for you. Your employment is hereby terminated. Remove yourself from this establishment at once. Mariette walked heavily down the stairs. A bevy of frightened, confused faces looked up at her, the students of the party which had been so suddenly called to a halt.
Oh, Mariette, what has happened?
Os de mon chemin.
What? I don't understand.
Sarah's papa is dead. She has nothing. I have nothing.
What? Nothing?
It is all over. I am leaving. The girls who remained were too shocked to prevent Mariette's angry exit.
Sarah, Mama.
I can't believe it. There must be a mistake. I will speak to Miss Minchin at once. Lavinia, get out of my way, you clod! Lavinia shoved the other girls aside. Ermengarde could not find the will to resist her. It was all too terrible, and too certainly true.
What will happen now? Will Miss Minchin make her leave too?
Becky's legs would no longer hold her. She fell into a heap on the floor, her kerchief sliding loose, and sobbed as if her heart would break. It's exactly like the ones in the stores, the poor princesses ones that were drove into the world. And I'm gonna save right there. So that is the end of the first arc. So what did you guys all think of that? Yeah, the first time Mabel saw it, she was like, what? First time I saw it, I was like, what? And this is what happens in the book. Like, this is an actual thing that happens in the book. It's a shock. I'm just sitting here like, I can't believe they did that. No, I don't think anyone did, which is why I love it. First of all, I love it as a book. Second of all, it's a big, hefty book too. It's a pretty long book. But yeah, no, I definitely did not expect this when I first played it. I was so shocked and heartbroken when I heard this, and this next part is a time.
but I think we're gonna save it for now, if that's okay. I would love to finish this tonight if I could, but my throat needs a break. And I just thank you all so much for being here. And like I said, don't worry, I promise that these will be uploaded to not Tumblr. These will be uploaded to my YouTube channel. Whoops. You loved it. You loved this game. This game was a time. Yeah, but isn't that just like a lot of gay stories? It's so cute and wholesome, and then it comes back around to bite you in the ass because you gave it too much fate. But yeah, I'm so excited. These will be posted on my on our YouTube. They'll probably be a little edited. I don't know if I want to fully edit this or just leave this. I probably will edit out like the times I took breaks just because I feel bad. So I appreciate the ones who stuck around while I was in break. But yeah, I'm very hungry, so I'm gonna eat. And then maybe after I'll stream some more stuff, but it's not gonna be this tonight. I might take a break from this for a little, because my voice just needs that break. But thank you guys so much for coming and listening in, and I'm really glad you've enjoyed it. Exactly. Listen, she can't fight crime if she doesn't lose both her parents in a tragic accident. You know? So, what will happen to Sarah Crew? Who knows? Only time will tell. Oh, just looking at her too, her in the dress with the pale eyes. I just feel so bad for her. She didn't deserve this. Definitely not. But this is what has happened. So, just make sure I saved it one more time. Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna go back to the main menu. Oh, look at her when she was so happy just a second ago. Well, that's gone. But again, just thank you guys so much. I will talk to you all later. Thanks for always being here for me. I cannot wait for future streams. It's gonna be a time. So, thank you so much. Bye-bye.